By the end of this video, I want you guys to let me know how you feel about Professor Xavier. Like, I know all this crazy stuff that goes on, how he's this and how he's that, but this comic book takes it to a whole new level. My name is Dorian, this is SEM Comics, and we are bringing you Immortal X-Men number 10. Let's get into it. So the book starts off with Mister Sinister in the lab doing his thing. Now, he has several clones of Myra McTaggart. Now, what I believe what he's trying to do is she has the ability to live 10 different lives, and there's 10 different scenarios. He's trying to find the right scenario to where he can take over. So just like with the Age of Apocalypse, Legion went back in time to try to kill Magneto when he was a lot younger and didn't have as great a control of his powers, but he wound up killing Professor Xavier, his father, instead before he formed the X-Men, which left the perfect conditions for Apocalypse to take over. But once you turn the page, you see why he's rushing like he is in his lab, because he set a trap for 4 of the Quiet Council and he took them out. He took out Professor Xavier, Emma Frost, Exodus, and Hope Summers. She's the most important because she is a part of the 5. The 5 consists of Proteus, Tempest, Elixir, Egg, and Hope Summers. Without Hope, you can't bring anybody back. And she is wrapped up in a blanket as Cable carries her up the steps, which Cable and her just gives a nice little callback to Messiah War. So while this is going on, Professor Xavier is monologuing to himself and he's questioning his own dream. And like he's even saying, it's not like it's like a policy or it's Xavier's 5-year plan. It's a dream. Dreams are often forgotten as soon as you wake up. So how important is a dream? And now we're to one of the points where I started to flip out on this comic book. So like I said before, without Hope Summers, there is no bringing anybody back. So you would think that would be the most important thing that every mutant there will have on their mind. We need to make this happen. But there's only 2 mutants that can make this happen: Mimic and Sync. Before there is one more word said, all you hear is Mimic go, "I can't do it, it's too horrible, and it's too much pressure. I can't, I'm sorry." In the same breath, all you hear is Sync goes, "I'll do it." If this was a TV show Survivor and it's live from Krakoa, Mimic would be the second person voted off the island. You gotta take care of Sinister's homicide first. You gotta get rid of him. But right after that, Mimic is a close second. Gotta get him out of here. So back to the homie Sync. Not only is he willing to do it, but then they're telling him that he shouldn't look at the body because it's pretty brutal. And he's like, no, I gotta do this. I gotta be as close as possible to her because we can't leave her like this. We have to bring her back. So now that Sync has copied Hope's powers, he joins the other 4, including the Stepford Cuckoos, because it's normally Professor Xavier who puts in the memories back into their head. With him out, then it falls to Emma. They're both out. Now it's the Stepford Cuckoos, and they bring back Hope. So they also bring back Exodus, and the first thing Exodus says is the Sinisters still breathe the same air as the mutants. They bring back Professor Xavier, and he's like, for now, but we're headed that way. And then Emma's like, good, if we hurry, we can still get a little bit of revenge. So on the next page, when I mean all the X-Men are after Sinister, all of the X-Men are after Sinister. So while this is going on, Charles Xavier is still doing the narration, and he fully admits with his mutant capabilities plus Cerebro, it wasn't like he had to find mutants. He knew about all of the mutants. So he selected the ones that he wanted to help. He knew about the Morlocks, and he even admits that he left them down there, did nothing about it. So SCM Nation, I pose this question. Charles Xavier knew about the Morlocks way before the Mutant Massacre, and he did nothing. Is that evil? Please let me know in the comments. So now back to our story. Sinister is starting to sweat bullets because he knows the X-Men is on his. So to try to slow down the X-Men, he releases this Cyclops mutant chimera called Eyeboy, who's shooting all these optic blasts. Doesn't work. X-Men runs right through him. So now Xavier is talking about his original X-Men, how Bobby, Iceman, has an ocean of talent and has barely been tapped, how Beast has an intelligence that exceeds his own, how Angel, who is married to money, has a wealth that exceeds his own, how Jean is a prodigy that is beyond imagination, and how Scott was already the leader that the team desperately needed. And then he talks about how he expanded his ranks, how he picked a goddess that had the home skills of a thief, how he picked a trained circus acrobat, an ex-Interpol agent, and we can't forget about the Black Ops killer. And as he says that, Sinister releases the Wolverine chimeras, which the X-Men run through them too. So Jean thinks she located them, and she sends Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler teleports and says Note is a decoy brain. I'm like, what? So now Sinister knows that they are really close to bringing down his door. So then he deploys his last chimeras, which are clones of Proteus. So while this is going on, Xavier is still narrating, and he's bringing up his son, and he's also bringing up Myra McTaggart's son. He's saying, I had a boy and he nearly destroyed the world with runaway thoughts, talking about Legion. And then he says Myra's boy was a serial killer that can carve reality with his mind, which is Proteus. Now, I know the X-Men are extremely powerful, but if Sinister has cloned Proteus and there's a bunch of them, they should not be running through these Proteuses like they ran through the Wolverines and the Cyclops. No, that shouldn't be happening. I mean, do you remember what happened in X-Men animated series when Proteus got a hold of Wolverine?
Make me bust you up. Hey, stop it! Make it stop!
You want to talk about it?
No, not now, not ever.
Proteus broke this man down like he was some Legos. And this just isn't any character we're talking about here. We're talking about Wolverine, who is one of, if not the toughest characters in Marvel. And Proteus had this man crying in the corner. But in saying that, the X-Men run through them too. So as that's happening, Xavier's still narrating, and he's bringing up how when Jean lost control, a whole planet burned. He's pretty much bringing up a lot of seminal moments in X-Men history. So I'm not gonna lie, this is one of my favorite parts of the whole comic book. It's funny as hell, but it's also kind of true in a sense. So Sinister is now shook, and he is hauling elbows to his ship. He goes, "You idiots. Krakoa wasn't made by you sweethearts. It was made by me, Myra, Magneto, other people not beginning with the letter M. Apocalypse, his name's kind of fancy and kind of looks like him if you squint." I was like, are you serious? I had to laugh at that one. He continues, "You take what you want from us, and then when we turn your stomachs, you cast us out and carry on living in the world you stole. But every time you cheat death, you say a prayer to Mister Sinister." I had to take a moment, because that was too gangster. Dude, that was Doctor Doom-esque. Dr. Doom might be kind of pissed at Sinister because he didn't come up with that. Like when Sinister turned into Nino Brown.
Sit your $5 down before I make change.
I looked you up, Kieron Gillen. Said you from England. You ain't from England. With that line, you gotta be from the 305. Because you took it straight to the house. So as Sinister was saying that, he was getting onto his ship. But Professor Xavier, Jean Grey, Exodus, and it looks like Emma Frost has pretty much chased him down. So while that's happening, Professor Xavier is still narrating, and he's explaining how mutants aren't like any other nationality out there. How minorities get looked down upon and persecuted on just based off the color of their skin, or sometimes lack thereof. Where mutants, the reason why people fear them is because they are dangerous. And as he says that, Jean and Exodus join hands and send down this psychic blast that just takes out Sinister's ship. So Sinister gets out of his ship, he tries to run, and he has his little army waiting for him, and Professor Xavier just waves his hand and all their heads just explode, and the Emmett comes out of nowhere and kicks the bejesus out of Sinister. So now Sinister's caught and he's about to go into judgment, but as they're going through that whole process, Professor Xavier reveals two crazy things. So Professor Xavier starts to explain how we're lucky that Magneto doesn't have his powers, Because if he did, and he had the mindset like he had in the 80s and 90s, that humanity would have been wiped out. But then he goes a step further and explains how he could have just went ahead and put in like a psychic suggestion into everybody's head. He said it would have took a few decades, but eventually he'd be all finished, and then humanity will wake up one morning and then grab a sharp object and take it straight to their neck, and humanity will have been wiped out in one bloody morning. Tell me that is not evil. Please let me know in the comments. But then he takes it one step even further and explains how there will never be a nuclear war, because he went into every world leader who has access to nuclear weaponry and put a suggestion on their head, and if they felt like they wanted to press the button, they couldn't. Their hand would just hover above it, and there is no way it can override it. Just complete control of these powerful people. How is that not evil? So while that's going on, Sinister has been judged and has been banished to the pits. And then Charles goes, "Let this be a wake-up call. We must be better in the future. We cannot act like we have. A useful monster is still a monster. Sinister is gone. Let us make a better, kinder Krakoa." So now it looks like the Quiet Council is breaking up and everybody's going about their business, and then Destiny walks up to Mystique and goes, "We must leave immediately." So then they show Charles, he's still narrating and he's by himself, and he takes off his helmet, and why does he have a diamond in the middle of his forehead, just like Mister Sinister? And with this being the case, Sins of Sinister is going to be wild. Only Mister Sinister. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about once you get to the end of this video. My name is Dorian, this is SEM Comics, and we are bringing you the complete coverage of Sins of Sinister with Sins of Sinister #1. So the book starts off 10 years into Sins of Sinister, and we see he has this huge incubation chamber where he's pretty much given birth to more of him. How do we know he's cloning himself? Because he says, "To me, my me's," pretty much making fun of Professor Xavier's "to me, my X-Men" phrase. And then on the next page, we are right back to the scene of the crime in Immortal X-Men #10. We did cover this on the channel. For those of you guys that missed it, we have a playlist in the description. So Sinister is getting sent to the pits, and he's pretty much yelling, "You bastards, you ungrateful bastards, you'll pay for this," as he's being sucked down in there. And then we are at the scene where Professor Xavier reveals that he has a diamond in the middle of his forehead. So then we see that Emma comes up from behind and surprises Professor Xavier, which, you know, how can you surprise a telepath? I guess with another telepath. But then come to find out that she also has a diamond on the forehead too, because she's like, well, if we're going to be naked out here. And she reveals hers, and then we also see that Exodus and Hope also have red diamonds on their forehead. Pretty much the 4 people that got killed in the beginning of Immortal X-Men #10, Sinister pretty much has cloned. So on the next page, you have Professor Xavier. He's talking to the Quiet Council, and he's explaining how the mutants should give more of their immortality to the humans. And Emma comes right at him and is like, how can we do that before we even bring back the mutants who died in Genosha, which is a great story, by the way. And right now they're putting on a good front. I mean, if whoever's not turned that's on the Quiet Council probably doesn't suspect anything, because they're pretty much arguing with each other, and we all know that they're both pretty much clones of Mister Sinister. But for the most part, Professor Xavier sounds like Professor Xavier. His dream was for mutants and humans to coexist in peaceful harmony, and that sounds like that's what he's trying to do here. But as Tupac would say, but you and I know what's going on. All my old heads like me are probably out there saying, "Payback! I know you bit from way back." I mean, they're playing it really slick. Like Exodus seems to be on Emma's side, and Hope seems to be on Professor Xavier's side. And when it's all said and done, they pretty much all agree that, yeah, we'll start sharing more with the humans. But more importantly, they get Storm to agree with them, which is extremely important, and you'll see here in a minute. So now we're 1 year into Sins of Sinister, and we have Ben Urich meeting James Jonah Jameson. And Ben Urich, has a trench coat on, has a hat, and he's carrying the case. And it seems like it's J. Jonah Jameson, because he's saying the normal J. Jonah Jameson line, saying, whatever you have, Ben, I'll pay top dollar, and maybe even more than $1, depends on what it is. So then Ben busts out the case, and there's this huge syringe. And then J. Jonah Jameson's like, look, I gave up drinking, I gave up the cigars years ago, I'm not into any of that kind of stuff, so back up. And he injects him, and Ben's like, look, I'm just had to make sure that you weren't one of them. Now, for those of you guys that remember, Ben Urich was the first one to uncover the whole immortality with mutants thing, and the Quiet Council thought they was going to have to deal with Ben Urich, but Ben Urich actually wound up keeping their secret. It was the Eternals during AXE that actually ratted them out to the humans. So now Ben Urich is one of the first ones to uncover that there's something fishy with the X gene and them guaranteeing immortality, which we all know now just means that Sinister is making more and more clones of himself. But then we find out that Jameson does have a red diamond in the middle of his forehead, and that they put out that whole, if you have this syringe and the solution, that it will let you know who got the X gene. It was a decoy. They just wanted to get people like Ben Urich to come out so they can pretty much catch them. So now we're to the point of the story where I didn't understand why this had to happen. Maybe somebody in the comments can explain to me why this was so important. So you have Forge, and obviously he's a Sinister because he has a red diamond in his forehead, and he's working on his weapon. So now the weapon is designed to shoot a blast from space, from I guess a satellite, to pretty much disable Krakoa and make it pretty much non-sentient, which I didn't understand why. If a lot of the people that are on the island are already Sinisters and the island has done nothing to you, then why take out the island? Like, I just don't understand it. Like I said before, maybe somebody in the comments can let me know why this even had to happen. But Forge is like, so who wants to kill the island? And then Hope goes, me, and she presses a button. This big blast comes out from space and pretty much takes out the island Krakoa. So now we're to the point to where Sinister just started doing people dirty. Cypher's one of the only mutants to be able to communicate with Krakoa, and he's trying to talk to him, and obviously Krakoa looks like it just got lobotomized, because it pretty much did. And then Wolverine comes from behind and just stabs Cypher like right through the chest. And I was like, man, you have to do Cypher like that. So the Emma's speaking to the world telepathically, and they're blaming the blast on Orchis. And they're saying that how they still have the ability to have mutants be immortal, but that blast took out the ability for humans to be immortal. Now on this page, I just had to laugh. Orchis has been a thorn in the X-Men side ever since this whole Krakoa era thing started. And Nimrod, we all know how powerful Nimrod is. I mean, he killed Professor Xavier and Magneto multiple times. He's killed some of the strongest mutants there is. The X-Men get the help of the Fantastic Four and the Avengers. Reed Richards and Iron Man come up with a virus and pretty much takes out Nimrod like that. And Orchis is wiped out in one page. So then Cyclops is talking to Captain America and is pretty much convincing them to take the X gene. So now we know that the Avengers and probably the Fantastic Four will now be compromised. So on the next page, in the corner it says brain fried Krakoa. We see that they bring back the original Mister Sinister from the pit, and he reveals how the main person he had to convert was Hope. When he was going through the whole different scenarios with the Myras and going through the different lives, she intentionally, just based on her powers, would get in Mr. Sinister's way. So he knew he had to convert her first, hence the reason why he set up the whole explosion thing to take out for the Quiet Counselor, but her in particular, because once he converted her, everything else would just fall into place. So now if you thought what happened to Orchis was bad, you better buckle your seatbelts, because the next few pages is going to be crazy. He detects Thanos in the time stream. So what does he do? He has Forge create this cannon. He has Juggernaut volunteer himself to be miniaturized to fit in the cannon. He has Hope copy Domino's powers to shoot the cannon, and he shoots Thanos in the head with Juggernaut. Thanos' brain matter is scattered amongst 2 billion years of history, and Juggernaut just keeps on going in time stream, and Sinister even admits he has no illusions of trying to bring him back. So Dr. Doom finds out what Sinister is up to. The unfortunate thing is that he found out a little bit too late because Namor was already converted, and he pretty much kills Dr. Doom right on the spot. Now, Sinister admits that there is a Doombot that is posing as Dr. Doom, and he's getting with the few pockets of Orchis that's still around, and it still poses a threat, but it's a very low threat, and he's not too worried about him. Now, the Eternals did X-Men dirty back in AXE, but Sinister, he's like Ric Flair.
I'm the dirtiest player in the game.
So back during AXE, Uranos decimated the Arakai mutants on Mars. So because of that, the Eternals said that the X-Men can use Uranos whenever they felt like it for 1 hour. Well, Sinister turned that card in, and he used it on the Eternals themselves, and Uranos decimated the Eternals, and then went back to his cell in the machine, and he was said to be smiling the whole time. So you're probably saying to yourself, it can't get any worse than this. Sinister is like,
hold my beer.
So Ben Grimm is compromised, but the X gene does 2 things to him. It helps him become a normal human again, but also corrupts his mind. He convinces the Fantastic Four to go back into space as they turn into rock monsters. He's seen choking out Reed Richards as they crash and pretty much die in space. And last but not least, he assassinates the president, and he blames the Avengers because they happened to be there at the time. He sends in the X-Men defeat them, and now they are Earth's mightiest heroes. So everything is going great for Mr. Sinister. No worries in the world. Except for one problem. There's Storm. You see, Storm gave up her resurrection protocols with Magneto when they went to Araco. So she hasn't been resurrected. So she hasn't had a chance to get the X gene put inside of her. And she notices that Kurt, Nightcrawler, it's not who he is, and she calls him out, and she's pretty much like, where is my friend at? And Sinister, I guess, has been trying to mess with his genes, but you know, Nightcrawler's like from like the nth dimension, I think it's called. So he's half mutant, half whatever that is, and he looks crazy as hell. Yeah, Sinister pretty much told Storm, like, I haven't got a handle on his genes yet, but don't worry, I'm not giving up just yet. So Sinister always knew that because Storm gave up resurrection protocols that he would have to figure out a way to deal with her. He says, I don't like to do the whole mind control thing, but really leave me with no other choice. And Emma Frost and Professor Xavier start to probe her mind, but then they show like a flashback before she went to Krakoa, and it shows her talking to somebody. I don't know who it is, but Storm kind of figured this might happen, and whoever she's talking to is so powerful. She says if she says a phrase that her mind will be linked with that person, and it was like nobody could hold the ocean in their fingers. So the Storm says you make sure, and all of a sudden her powers just unleash, and there's like this big huge hurricane that she creates, and it pretty much blows everybody away, and then she gets out of there. So then Storm lands, and Mystique and Destiny are waiting for her. And then Storm's like, Destiny, how'd you know? And then she goes, of course. And Destiny's like, of course. And then she pretty much tells her that, look, we're going to lose unless we work together. We need to be on the same side. So Sinister is like far from done. He has Sebastian Shaw take over a Hell Dimension. So because Sebastian Shaw is a ruler of a Hell Dimension, they're able to get their hands on a certain sword that belongs to Surtur. And then he sends magic to pretty much cause Ragnarok to Asgard. He sends down that same beam that he hit Krakoa with to take out Wanda, and says no more Wanda, just in case. He starts to experiment with the mutants, and he starts making these crazy looking chimeras that have 2 different mutant powers. Like one chimera is Beast and Colossus, another chimera is Wolverine and Cyclops, another chimera is Iceman and Pyro. So because he has control of a hell dimension, he sends them to try to take out Storm and their Rakai on Mars. Unfortunately though, he doesn't know whether the attack was successful or not. So now we're 10 years into Sinister Sinister, and we see that he has spliced Spider-Man and Nightcrawler together, and everything seems to be going well, but now he has a meeting with the Quiet Council. His Quiet Council. So the council's worried. Storm did get away, so there's her to still deal with. There are little pockets of Orcus that's still rebelling against them, and supposedly, I guess space is now paying attention to what's going on Earth, and supposedly they're getting riled up. So Hope suggests that they start getting ready for a space war. And Sinister's like, nah, we don't need to worry about that. We need to focus on science. He was like, I finally got Kurt's genes under control, but I really want to find out how I did it, because I just kind of did it on accident. But they was like, no, we needed to take a vote. And then everybody voted in favor of Hope to get ready for the space war. And then Sinister looks taken aback a little bit, but he's like, yeah, no problem. You know what? This is why we have a council here. In his mind, he's thinking to himself, you know what? I'm about to just restart this because this ain't working right now. Like, he fully admits he left too much of their own personality in there. He said, next time, I will not make that mistake. So he goes back to Myrrh Island to his secret lab, to where he keeps his Myras at, and he's like, you know what, it's just time to restart this thing and we're going to try this again. So he's going down there, and it's one way to get down there. So he's going down there, and all of a sudden there's nothing there. Somebody stole his lab, stole his Myras, and because the lab's gone, now he's trapped down there. Only Mister Sinister can have a whole arc dedicated to him, and he messes everything up in the first book.
Come on, man.
Far be it from me to question the great Al Ewing. He wrote Immortal Hulk, The Ultimates, X-Men Red. All these are bangers. But the way that this book ends, man, that's what he does in the next 2 issues. My name is Dorian. This is SCM Comics. We are covering the complete Sins of Sinister series. Today we are covering Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants, #1. So it starts off with Arakko, well, Mars, which Arakko is on, and it has Storm saying, yes, I remember how Arakko died, as you see these ships attacking Mars. So then on the next page, we do a flashback to Sins of Sinister #1, which we covered here on the channel. The link will be in the playlist in the description. But she explains how she went to go question the Quiet Council on Krakoa because he felt like Arakko changed for the better, they changed for the worse, and then she found out because Sinister had Emma Frost and Professor Xavier try to take over her mind, but her fellow Rakai helped her out, and she had a failsafe put in to where she can get away. She wanted to go to war right then and there, but Mystique and Destiny stopped her and told her to wait. So she rallied up her forces, and she said she was ready for anything. But then she said she wasn't ready for everything because Sinister took over a hell dimension, and they pretty much were sending everything they had at Arakko, and they just didn't have enough. So Mars was destroyed, wiped out, and the remaining Arakai are pretty much hiding amongst the asteroids that Mars eventually got broken up into. And on one of those asteroids, we see that Storm is talking to Irene Adler, which is Destiny, for those of you that don't know. And she's pretty much questioning her, saying, you told us to wait, but I'm wondering if we would have just went ahead and went to war earlier, would we have stood a better chance? So I feel like Rob from Comics Explained ironically explained Destiny the best. Destiny is a precog. For those of you that watched the Minority Report, now this is a 21-year-old movie, and I can't believe I'm saying this, and there are people that are watching this video that weren't even born yet, so a lot of you guys might not know what I'm even talking about. In this movie, you had 3 beings that when you put them together, they had the ability to predict the future. In a sense, you could think of them like a basketball player who's a 95% free throw shooter. It seems like they never miss, but there are instances when they do miss. Well, that's how these precogs were in the Minority Report. It seemed like what they said always happened, but then there's that one time when it doesn't. So like Rob said, this is a lot how Destiny works. If she tells you something's going to happen tomorrow, you can 5-star lock it. It's going to happen. If she tells you something's going to happen 5 years from now, there are a lot of things that can happen within that time frame that can change that prediction. So, I wouldn't bet the farm on if she tells you something's going to happen 5 years from now. It still could happen, but it also might not happen. So if you guys are picking up what I'm putting down. So now Destiny gets uppity with Storm, and she's like, look, I guess you haven't forgiven me for what happened, but I do know this. You will not kill me. At least today, you will not kill me. And then Storm's like, this ain't the time or the place to be playing that prediction bullshit. And Storm pretty much backs up what I just said about Destiny. She says, if your predictions can fail, then what you told us can be forgiven. But if you were just trying to arrange the chess pieces to fit what you want to do, and our deaths was going to happen no matter what, you just wanted it to happen at this certain time, then you shouldn't have come here. But then Storm goes, if you even came here. And she goes, John, and it's John Ironfire. He comes out of nowhere and then just stabs the hell out of Destiny, talking about your body language and your vocal patterns were different. Come to find out, it's Mystique. So now, for those of you that think, oh no, he killed Mystique. No, he did not kill Mystique. Mystique has a healing factor. It's not as good as Wolverine's, but it's pretty damn good. So what just happened to her, she'll be just fine, and she'll be fine pretty quickly. So Storm asks Mystique why she come here, and again, Mystique is about to back up what I just said about Destiny. She goes, she predicted that if she came here that she'll be safe, but some things you don't gamble with. So I decided to come wearing my wife's face to deliver a message. So she goes, how would you like Arakko to live again? So the whole reason why Sinister is able to do all this is because he has the clone Myra McTaggart, who still has her mutant powers. So he's able to use her, start her life, and then if something happens, he just goes ahead, kills her, and then he starts the whole process over. Because she's able to live 10 different lives and have 10 different scenarios. Mystique knows where Sinister Lab is. It's on Mirror Island. And she's asking Storm if she will go with her to take it. So for this mission, I present to you the Brotherhood. We have Storm, who has control of weather on any planet in the universe. We have Cable, who merged with one of their rock guys known as Xylo, who has been around for like over 10,000 years. So not only does he have all that information that Xylo has, Xylo also took out the techno-organic virus, so now Cable is free to use 100% of his powers, so he's now an Omega level mutant. We have Korra, whose mutant powers is to boost the ability to anybody near her. Her father is the legendary Fisher King of Arakko. You have WizKid that has the ability to create and command any technology he imagines, including the cloaking device they're using to stay out of Sinister's radar. You have Ironfire, which we already met earlier. He can transmute his molten blood into any metal known and use them as weapons. We have Quick, who is the fastest being currently living. She is also the youngest of the Brotherhood. And to round it off, guest starring, we have Mystique, who can change into anybody and also has a pretty good healing factor. So they all show up to Mirror Island, and WizKid and Mystique get into it right off the rip. WizKid asks Mystique how those guns are that he designed for her, and she goes, oh, they're pretty good. Are you asking me because I'm going to use them as soon as we're done here on you guys? And then Quick comes over and is like, let's try it, and pretty much has her knife to Mystique's neck. And then WizKid's like, well, there's Quick, and also too, I designed them to where there's a locking mechanism that won't let you use it on any member of the Brotherhood. But then he goes, with that aside, I think we're going to be way too busy to bicker amongst ourselves. And then it shows how Sinister has these chimeras that are mixed with Maggot and Meryl. So they're definitely going to be a handful to deal with. So then Storm creates this huge lightning filled tornado and pretty much blasts it to the ground. She tells Ironfire and WizKid to follow her down the tunnel that she just created, and she tells the others to stay on the surface and keep fighting. So they go down to the lab, and there's a bunch of chimeras waiting on them, including a living force field that's around the Myras, and WizKid's all in and oohing about this technology that Sinister has created. He says it's impressive, but I think I know a way around it. And he asks Storm and Ironfire to hold off the other Chimeras for a little bit while he works. So on the surface, they're dealing with the other Chimeras, and all of a sudden they find out that Mystique is like this hologram. Come to find out, she was posing as Wiz Kid. She stabbed Storm right in the back and through her stomach. And then whoever she's working for pretty much teleports Mystique out of there, plus the Myras that are in the lab. So this is a problem because that looked like a fatal blow. She has no resurrection protocols, and even if she did, it doesn't matter because Sinister is in charge of it right now anyway. So then it flashes to the real Destiny, and she's talking to somebody. Once you turn the page, we see it's Dr. Stasis, who has a club symbol on his forehead, which means he is another version of Sinister, but also means that Orchis isn't as dead as what we thought they were in Sins of Sinister #1. So now please let me know in the comments, are you as pissed as I was when I first read this? Al Ewing, you got 2 more books. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, when I looked at the list of books that were gonna be a part of Sins of Sinister, Nightcrawlers did not excite me. Si Spurrier, I apologize, because this book is fire. My name is Dorian, this is SCM Comics, and we are covering the complete Sins of Sinister series, and today we're doing Nightcrawlers #1. So the book starts off, we're in the Sanctum Sanctorum in New Exodus, formerly known as New York. Yeah, I know the Sinister thing is getting deep, ain't it? And we have Banshee, who has been possessed by the spirit of variance. Now, I know half of you guys are probably like me, like, what the hell is the spirit of variance? I know, I had to look it up myself. The spirit of variance used to be a spirit of vengeance, but then he believes that the pursuit of vengeance is futile, so he's no longer a spirit of vengeance. Like, I didn't know you can quit being a spirit of vengeance like that. I mean, it's like he goes to Mephisto and is like, you know what, Mephisto, I'm sick of this. You don't respect me, the customers ain't never happy, and you don't pay me what I deserve, so I quit. Like, I don't think it goes down that way, being the spirit of vengeance and all that. So Banshee, even though he's possessed by the spirit of variance, like, he's still him. And he's talking to spirit of variance. He's like, do you hear that? We need to get the hell out of here. And spirit of variance is like, I hear it, but Mother sent us to scavenge for items of power. That's what we need to do. And all around them, all you hear is bamf, 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 bamf. So the spirit of variance is pretty much telling Banshee to remain calm. And Banshee's like, remain calm? Like, these ain't your regular Sinisters, pal. Like, this is his elite force. Like, we need to get the hell out of here and go back to the spirit realm. And spirit of variance is like, no. It's been 10 years since Mother has banded us together. When has she ever rewarded failure? You guys are going to find out who Mother is real soon. So all of a sudden they bamf together, and we see it's the Legion of the Night. They are Nightcrawler chimeras of X-23, Toad, Sabretooth, Spider-Man, Dominoes, and Pyro. And I know what you guys are about to say. It's not X-23 no more. It's Wolverine. I know. Yes, it's Wolverine. But to me, it should always be X-23. So Wolverine is all over Vox Ignis. That is Banshee and the Spirit of Variance. And first thing she goes, she's like, that outfit is even tackier up close. Stripes, we wouldn't be called dead in stripes, but you will. So Banshee's like to Spirit of Variance, we need to do the Scream. Spirit of Variance is like, the Scream never works. Why would we do that? He was like, we ain't got no other choice. The Scream is a mixture of Banshee's Scream plus the Penance Stare kind of rolled into one. So the Spirit of Variance is like, fine, we'll do the Scream. And he hits the Scream on Wolverine. So she's just kind of standing there, and there's a Nightcrawler chimera version of Implate, and he goes, Commander, are you okay? Like, your thoughts are no longer sinister. So then she just goes and she just stabs the hell out of him right in his neck, and then she takes her third claw, which is in her foot, and she stabs Sabretooth. I guess Sinister forgot to give this Nightcrawler Sabretooth's healing factor. So Wolverine is like, free as many of my kin as you can. So he hits the Scream on Domino and Spider-Man. So the Sabretooth's like, look, he can't scream at all of us. We just need to scatter. And Domino just goes, good luck with that. And she shoots bullets into the BAMF, and it opens up and it shoots Sabretooth, Toad, and Pyro directly in the head. So that now that the rest of the team is dead, Spider-Man goes, before we do anything else, I just want to say that me personally, I really do like the stripes. I'm like, wow, they're staying on this stripe thing, aren't they? So now it switches to the moon, where we're at the House of the Fall, which used to be the Summers house. And we see Mother is Mother Righteous, and she goes, you're late. Vox Ignis is like, sorry about that, but the mission was a success, and I hope. And then Mother Righteous is like, look, we don't deal with hope, that's a bad currency. I'd rather deal with faith. So then they walk to this teleporter, and they're in like this pub of sorts. And Mother Righteous is meeting with the other Sinisters, besides our main Sinister. You got Orbis Solaris, who is the old naked guy that's in the floating spear. He has the spade on his forehead. And then you got Dr. Stasis, who he has the club on his forehead. And Dr. Stasis is getting all over Mother Righteous. He's like, who is this hussy with this East London accent? And Mother Righteous claps right back at him. She's like, look, you don't know about me because I didn't want you to know about me. I'm like, damn. And then she goes, the accent isn't quite East London, but near enough. It just reminds me where I'm from. And Dr. Stasis is like, where is that? And she takes off her mask and she reveals that she has the heart symbol on her forehead, and she goes, Essex. So Dr. Stasis goes like, and she stops him. She's like, look, I don't pretend to be the original like you two yahoos. But then she goes, but now that we're all acquainted, Vox Ignis, put down the King of Clubs. So obviously Dr. Stasis has some backup, and he sends his Tiger Chimera to fight Vox Ignis. Do you know how bad I want to say Vox Machia? Like, I have to stop myself sometimes. Speaking of which, the second season's out. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to. So Vox Ignis tries to use his Hellfire on the Tiger Chimera, which does not work. And Banshee's like, I think we're in trouble. I don't know what we're going to do. And then all of a sudden, all you hear is BAM! And the Nightcrawler chimeras of Spider-Man, X-23, Wolverine, and Domino show up. Wolverine makes quick work of that Tiger Chimera, cuts his head right off. So then the other two are attacking Dr. Stasis, but he has like this force field up. And then he starts throwing like shurikens at him. So Wolverine comes over, and all of a sudden all these tentacles come out of Dr. Stasis and grabs Wolverine. And he's like, you know what? After I rip your limbs off, I think I'm going to incorporate these claws. Waste not, want not. And then she uses her tail and stabs Dr. Stasis right in the club in his forehead and kills him. So come to find out, Orbis Solaris actually made a deal with Mother Righteous to take out Dr. Stasis. So Orbis Solaris is like, I really didn't think you'd be able to kill him. And I thought I had to actually sit down and actually listen to a proposal to start an alliance with this dude. And Mother Righteous is like, look, cut the games. You wanted Dr. Stasis dead. He's dead. Now I want answers. So Orbis Solaris pretty much lets Mother Righteous know that he stole Sinister's lab and has the Myras. The reason why he stole is because he doesn't want his timeline reset and have to go through all this craziness again. He's pretty much in the driver's seat now that he stole the lab, and he needed Dr. Stasis out the way because that was one of the people that could actually stand in his way. So then Orbis Solaris goes, look, the sword does not fear the cup. Stay out my way, and I promise you I won't do anything to you, and I promise you safe passage through my dimension. It's the least I can do for you taking care of Dr. Stasis. So Mother Righteous is into magic like the other Sinisters are into science. But don't get that twisted. She's still a Sinister, so she's not stupid. So she realizes when she got played. And Vox Ignis is like, Mother Righteous, you want me to? And she just cuts him off. She's like, look, if you really want to help me, find me more allies. So then Vox Ignis and the Nightcrawlers go to the Savage Land, and they're being chased by a Colossus, Nightcrawler, Chimera, and some dinosaurs. They go into the ocean, into Atlantis. Yes, Atlantis, not no Tolokan. And they get chased off by Namor. They go to Westchester, and they get chased off there. But We also see that they actually were able to convert the Colossus Nightcrawler Chimera. Now, they even go back to the facility where all the Nightcrawler Chimeras were made at, because it seems like the Scream only works on the Nightcrawler Chimeras. And then they run across Kurt. Yes, the original Nightcrawler. And he looks like he did in Mister Sinister, looking like a cross between a demon and a dragon. And the scientist is not even trying to fight him. He's just like, look, keep it down, because you don't want this dude waking back up. He's not due to feed for another week. So now we switch to Avengers Crater, which is formerly Avengers Mountain, and we see that all the Nightcrawlers have gathered up all these different magical items. They even have a brain of Cortez, which helps boost anybody's mutant powers. And Mother Righteous is like, you guys have done well, but now we need to break into Sinister's lab. And she goes, who wants to volunteer? So Vox Agents is trying to explain how the lab is at the World Farm, and that's pretty much a suicide mission. Mother Righteous is like, hush. So Wolverine is trying to volunteer, and then Spider-Man is like, no, let me go. And he starts to explain how, yeah, they were free from Sinister's grip because of the Scream, but he says there's always a voice in the back of his head that's trying to pull him back in. And he says if there's a way for me and my kind to be free, he wants to be able to do it. So Mother Righteous is like, okay, take the brain of Cortez, that should boost your range. And then he bamps right into the force field, pretty much kills him on the spot. And that's the end of Nightcrawler Spider-Man. And Mother Righteous doesn't even bat an eyelash. She pretty much asks them what was his name, shows what kind of leader she is, and they go Wallcrawler. And then she's like, because of Wallcrawler, now we know that the lab has a force field, so now we know how to attack it. All we need is faith and time. She also goes, while we wait, we might as well gather up the instrument of the gods. And she shows them visions of the Eye of Agamotto, Mjolnir. Who's going to pick that up? The Seas Perilous, the Darkhold. Do they really want to get Chthon involved in this? I mean, if they're going after all these magical items, these next two issues are going to be crazy. And I can't wait. For those of you that have missed the old Emma Frost from the Hellfire Club, buckle up seatbelts, because Kieron Gillen has brought her back. My name is Dorian. This is SEM Comics. We are covering the complete Mister Sinister series with Immortal X-Men #1. So it starts off with Nick Fury Jr. and he's in charge of these rebel forces, and they're going to do a raid on the Westchester compound to take out the cerebral satellite, because in his words, he feels like once they take out that satellite, then they have a fighting chance, especially since Orchis got taken out. I can't believe Orchis is the good guys in this. I mean, it blows my mind. So then somebody goes, are we leaving by door or by window? And then Nick Fury Jr. kind of pauses for a second. He goes, I'm pretty sure it's by window. And they all just jump out the window and they fall to their deaths. And then come to find out on the next page that it was all Professor Xavier. So he takes off his helmet and he goes, another cell gone. And Emma's pissed at him. She's like, you get to smash another cell, yet and still you do it so quickly. Like, I like to savor the moment. And then Professor Xavier sheds a tear, and Emma goes, are you crying? And Professor Xavier goes, well, what do you want me to show? I'm willing to do what it takes to achieve the dream, but what we're doing is heinous. And I could just see Emma Frost tapping into her inner John Cena, telling Professor Xavier, you need to show
ruthless aggression.
So then on the next page, they're looking at a statue of Magneto, and Professor Xavier goes, I wish Eric was here. So he finally realized that I was right and he was wrong. And there goes that Sinister gene right there. So the Hope chimes in and she's like, if you're done mopping over your dead boyfriend, we need to get everybody together to talk about this dream of yours and to make sure that we don't wake up from it. So then Professor Xavier is about to create the psychic link, and Emma goes, no, it's my turn. She goes, quiet council, let's chat. So the first thing Kitty says is, every time you do the psychic link, Emma, you make the chairs so uncomfortable. And Emma's like, yes, you keep the chairs uncomfortable to make sure that this meeting is short as possible. So then Emma goes to Hope and is like, is that a cybernetic hand? And Hope's like, yeah, there's a gun in the pinky and the thumb is a grenade. She goes, somebody's got to be Cable. And if Dad's gone buggy, then I guess it got to be me. If you want to know what she's talking about, you can check out Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants, which we cover on the channel. Link will be in the description. So of course, you had to cut off her hand and put on a cybernetic, and guess who kept it? That's right, Exodus. So the way that Hope sees it, she feels like they got 30 years before one of the empires from space comes calling, whether it be the Kree Skrull, the Shi'ar, the Badum, or all of them at once. And they feel like they don't have the technology or the firepower to withstand that kind of attack. So then it cuts to Sinister, and he's sitting by himself, and he's trying to enjoy a cup of tea. And he's like, they call this tea? He's like, it's not like it's gene science, yet and still, the simple task is beyond the colonials. Kieron Gillen's getting real British up in here, especially this next line. Sinister goes, I don't know why the Boston Tea Party was such a big deal. Americans have been lobbying fine tea into freezing waters. That's just business as usual. This is starting to sound personal, Kieron Gillen. And then he's like, this is more evidence of how this has gone so wrong. So then he teleports to his second secret lab, which is in the Westchester complex. And he has a clone of himself sit there, pretty much butt naked. So the clone goes, where am I? And Sinister goes, in my second best secret lab. You're my duck. And the clone's like, pardon? And Sinister starts to explain how you're supposed to talk to an inanimate object, pretty much talk out your problems. And by talking out the problems, you realize the solution. But you talk to a duck. This must be a British thing. So Sinister goes, I would never talk to a real duck, the untrustworthy animal. And even I wouldn't clone a Sinister duck. So I made you. So he pretty much comes to the conclusion that all the solutions to his problems are in his secret lab, which were stolen from him by Orbis Solaris, which is another butt-naked Sinister, which tends to be trending in this event. So the only thing that he can think of is to start turning on his creations, which he starts with the duck. Now, Sinister just didn't give them the Sinister gene, but he also gave them secondary powers like the power of flight, which he gave himself, which he's using right now. And he swoops down into Emma's room to try to, I guess, drug her, but she's in her diamond form, and he's like, how? Now, from this moment on, when it comes to Emma Frost, you about to see some gangsters. She got Jason Wingard, aka Mastermind, locked up and hyped up on amphetamine so he doesn't go to sleep, so she can sleep in her diamond form all night and nobody realizes this. Now, for those of you guys that are old enough to remember, Jason Wingard and Emma Frost used to be running mates in the Hellfire Club back in the 70s and 80s in X-Men. So, like, they're no strangers to each other. So I'm like, why is she doing this to this dude like that? But then it gets so much worse. He goes, did I do well, mistress? And Emma goes, no, Jason, you never do well. That's why you're here. So Sinister's like, I ain't gotta see no more. And he dips. And Emma's like, Quiet Council, assemble. We have a hunt. So the Quiet Council splits up and they search for Sinister everywhere. So a few of them go to Bar Sinister. A few of them go to Savage Land. A few of them go to France. A few of them even go to Wakanda. But Emma knows right where he's at. And she shows up, chain in hand, talking about, I had a surface scanner tracking you ever since you took off with your tail between your legs, but you can't run from mama. She is taking this dominatrix thing seriously, but he's ready for it this time. So he has this gun that mimics Banshee's scream, and he can calibrate it to where the scream can shatter diamonds, and he takes Emma's arm right off. But she's ready too. She's like, you disarmed me before, you're never going to disarm me again. And she has this Logan patch which Sinister created, which gives the person, whoever puts it on, Wolverine's healing factor, and her arm comes right back. So Sinister goes and he unleashes these chimeras, which are a mixture of different mutants, but the main mutant gene going through them is Scott's. So he unleashes them, and then Emma's like, you must not know who I am. And then the Scotts start turning on each other and start shooting each other. And she's like, there isn't a Scott alive that I can't manipulate. You think you know Scott better than me? Please. So now, for those of you that have parents like mine and you got your ass whooped, this part is going to be very familiar.
I wouldn't do that just yet, because your ass is mine.
So then she grabs that chain that she brought with her, wraps it around Sinister's neck. Now, pimping ain't easy, but sometimes it's necessary. And you about to see some pimping right now. So in Immoral X-Men number 10, Sinister had this cold ass line that I'm like, man, that was gangster. Well, Emma, she got a cold line in this one. She's like, power is not what you are, it's what you do. True queens are self-made, not appointed. So Emma is breaking this man down to his common denominator. I mean, he is struggling. And right before he passes out, he's able to reach to his computer and he shows Emma how he's working on this new type of chimera that instead of just having 2 additional abilities, they'll have 5 additional abilities. And it intrigues her. So she runs this past the Quiet Council to see if they approve and see if they'll vote to keep Sinister alive. And they all vote for Sinister to stay alive. But then she's like, before I let you go, I want you to beg. And Sinister doesn't even bat an eyelash. He goes, Mistress, Mother Queen, or any and all the above, please. So she goes, well, looks like you're one of us again. Krakoa needs you. But stay in line, because if you don't, Mama's coming for you. Emma is such a pimpiness. I halfway expect her to say, you see, I talk a little fast, but listen a little fast, and I got to slow down so you can catch up. So please let me know in the comments. Do you sometimes have to read a book twice to get a grasp of it? Because for some reason, the first time I read this book, I wasn't getting it. Like, maybe I was tired. I do work 2 jobs, so that ain't got nothing to do with anything. But the second time I read it, I was like, man, I missed this. Man, I missed that too the first time. I was like, dude, this book is fire. My name is Dorian, this is SEM Comics, and we are covering the complete Sinister series with Nightcrawlers #2. Now, the first 4 books took place 10 years once Sinister took over. Now, we're 100 years after Sinister takes over, and if you remember in Sins of Sinister, Magic attacked Asgard, but she didn't destroy Asgard, and Asgard, I guess, was able to get away by destroying the Bifrost. But 90 years later, Magic of the Red Diamond is back to finish what she started, and that is a cool ass name. And she's even joking how she has rebuilt the Bifrost, except for it's not rainbow anymore, it's black. She's like, everything looks better in black. And the Night Queen, those are all the Nightcrawlers that are under Mother Righteous, have been waiting for this moment. And when you find out why they've been waiting for this moment, it is very cold-blooded. But before we get into that, let's talk about these blessings. So on the first page, it says 3, blessed be the Night Gene, 2, blessed be the Reliquary Perilous, and 1, blessed be the Spark. Now I want to take a few moments to talk about the Reliquary Perilous, or at least what I think it is. And please let me know in the comments if you agree with me. Now, a reliquary is something that houses religious items. So if you have a box and you put religious items into it, that is not a box anymore, that is now a reliquary. And then perilous, when you say those words in Marvel Comics, you only think of one thing, and that's the Seas Perilous. Now, the Seas Perilous opens up a doorway and it will grant the user a new chance at life, a new career, new home, etc. Who's that sound like? Yes, my Roman Tiger is like a living, breathing Seas Perilous. And if you remember back in issue 1, one of the magical items that Mother Righteous wanted them to get was the Seas Perilous. So I feel like Mother Righteous is hedging her bets. She's trying to break into Sinister's lab, but just in case she can't, she's gathering up all these magical items to put with the Seas Perilous so that it has more magical power, so that it just wouldn't change one person's reality, but everybody's reality. So let me know in the comments, do you agree what I just said, or do you feel like I should just leave this kind of thing to like Rob and Ernie? Please let me know in the comments. And if you feel like I'm off, what is your idea, or what do you think the reason why she's gathering up all these items? And what is the Reliquary Perilous? So now back to Magic. I'm sorry, Magic of the Red Diamond. God, it's a cool name. So the first time Magic showed up, she clapped Asgard's cheeks, and they barely escaped. Now she's back. Not only is she clapping those cheeks like she did before, but now she's equipped with the new chimeras that Sinister has developed. So this fight is one-sided as one-sided can get. And this is all being narrated by Wagnerine. God, that sounds stupid. Can we just say Nightcrawler lore? I'm just going to call her Nightcrawler lore. I'm not calling her Wagnerine. So Asgard has nothing to feel bad about because we'll just call them the Red Diamond Clique clap everybody, including the great and mighty Shi'ar Empire. So when it comes to space in Marvel Comics, it doesn't get too much more powerful than the Shi'ar. It normally goes Shi'ar, the Badoon, the Kree, the Skrulls. Those are like your four major ones. So to take the Shi'ar down, yeah, you're doing something. And then the way they took the Shi'ar out is just nuts, because it only really took one person. They sent Professor Xavier to the Shi'ar home planet, and he was in like the spacesuit above the planet, and it had a bunch of these like duplicate brains all around them, and he used it to give everybody on the planet one little suggestion, that everybody's out to get them, and then they start killing themselves. And the Night Queen used that distraction to steal 6 shards of the Immoral crystal. And if you're an old school X-Men fan, you know how powerful the Immoral crystal is. So this is what the Night Queen do. They come in when the Red Diamond Clique is taking out civilization, and while the civilization is pretty much trying not to die, they use that distraction to steal whatever magical items that they have. And Loki sees one of them and tries to talk to him. He's like, look, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, so why don't we help each other? But they ain't trying to hear it, because we see on the next page why they're there. They're there to get Mjolnir. But the king of Asgard is not going out without a fight. Unfortunately, it's not much of a fight, because Nightcrawler Lord just comes and just cuts his arm off. So Thor is now thoroughly defeated, but he still feels confident that none of the Night Queen will be able to pick up Mjolnir. And then comes Lost in Shadow. We finally got a cool name for one of these Nightcrawlers, because it's been horrible so far, but Lost in Shadow, that's a cool ass name. Now she is a mixture of the mutant Lost and obviously Nightcrawler. Now Lost can control gravity. So what she does is she just comes down and she just controls the gravity that's around Mjolnir, and she's able to just levitate it. So if you remember back in Nightcrawlers #1, they had the brain of Fabian Cortez. His mutant power was to boost other people's mutant powers. So by having the brain there, they're able to teleport to longer distances. Well, 100 years later, they have streamlined the process, and now they just have a drink that's called Cortez that they use. Now, how did they take the brain and turn to a drink? I do not know, but pretty much they use it in the same way. And then to make matters worse, they leave, and now Asgard is going to fall to some Sinterized frost giants. Is anybody safe from not becoming a Sinister? So on the next page, we have a ship that is not powered by a flux capacitor, or it's not powered by warp drive. No, it is powered by the mutant chamber. They clone like 4 to 5 of them, and that's how the spaceship moves in space. And Vox Ignis has come to visit the Night King, but mostly he's come to visit with Night Lore. And as he's walking, he sees that Summer Night, oh, that's a cool name, as a cross between Nightcrawler and Cyclops, is getting his last rites because the Sinister Diamond is starting to win the battle and take him back over. So Vox Ignis asks Laura what happened, and she goes, well, great trauma can cause the Diamond to win the battle again. And Vox Ignis is like, well, what trauma? And Laura's like, don't act like you don't know. So when Sinister made the Night King, they pretty much don't have any reproductive organs. But Laura has been pretty much stealing magical items for about almost 100 years now. And a lot of those magical items have healing properties. So eventually her reproductive organs were healed. And her and Summer Night actually were together, and they had a baby. It was a great moment, and it lasted about 10 seconds. All of a sudden their golden baby started glowing, and then it just bammed out of nowhere. She don't know where it went. It could have bammed into the heart of a star. It could have bammed into like the middle of a void. She doesn't know. And then to make matters worse, Mother Righteous puts the baby in the middle of their religion. So now this is like little baby Jesus, and it's just too much for Summer Night to take. How can he worship a baby that he should be holding in his hands? Dolores says she pretty much lost half her heart when her baby disappeared, and now that Summer Night has been sacrificed, to the force field at Sinister's lab, she lost her other half. And overall, it's just looking bad for the Nightkins. They're running low on, they call it the flesh of Cortez, which extends their leaps. That's the thing that they drink, which we already talked about. And also too, it took them 100 years, but Sinister, I think, finally realizes that there's something wrong with the Nightcrawler Chimera, so he just stopped making them. And on top of this, Mother Righteous keeps making the list of sacred items needed to build a reliquary perilous bigger and bigger, to the point to where Nightcrawler Laura is just thinking to herself that they're going to be dead way before this thing is completed. But then Vox Ignis tells an interesting story to Laura about how the real Legion visited Mother Righteous. And Legion tells him under no certain terms that he knows that she has an ulterior motive, that she's telling everybody that she wants to build the reliquary perilous to purge the sinister gene from the universe. But truth be told, she probably wants to build this for a whole other reason entirely. And then he pretty much tells her that he's not even going to be around to see what happens, because he's taking his people that he saved and he's going to the higher planes, wherever that is. So after that, Laura comes up with a plan to help increase their numbers, but she feels like that Vox Ignis will be the better person to tell Mother Righteous about it, which Mother Righteous is actually intrigued and agrees to. So Laura's plan is to go to Earth and go to the original factory where the Nightcrawler Chimeras were made and get Dr. Nemesis. The problem with that is that the planet got invaded by the Brood. So you're probably thinking to yourself, yay, the Brood helped out and they took out the Quiet Council. No, they did not. The Quiet Council left long before the Brood got there. Because how did Sinister say it? They had places to bomb and realities to take over. Yes, they have expanded their reach to even other realities. So they get to the lab, they grab Dr. Nemesis, and if you look at him, he gives new definition to the term mushroom head. And he even says, please don't cut my fungi brain, but obviously they had to free him. They bamf back to Mother Righteous. They pretty much say, hey, we got Dr. Nemesis. Now we can hopefully expand our tribe. She's like, oh, yay. Okay, fine. He can serve me for a few centuries. But then there's a big bamf. And in comes the original Nightcrawler, who he still looks like a crazy looking demon. And he is pissed. And he grabs Mother Righteous and just throws the hell out of her. And he is like all over Mother Righteous. But then she hits him with some like magical energy and distracts him for a second, grabs his sword, and then cuts down Nightcrawler. And she did it like Stone Cold style. Like, if you want me to grab a big ass sword out of a magic hole from my chest,
Give me a hell yeah!
So then Laura is obviously devastated and she goes to attack Mother Righteous. When Mother Righteous just snaps her fingers and hits Laura with something that pretty much takes her down. And then she's pretty much telling Vox Ignis to take care of Laura. He doesn't want to, and Mother Righteous is like, not you too. And she starts to do something to Vox Ignis, which gives Laura time to bamf out of there. So obviously Mother Righteous is pissed, and for everybody to get out of her sight and to take care of Nightcrawler. They gather up Nightcrawler, they wrap him up in some shrouds, and then they send him to Sinister's lab, where he hits the force field and is ultimately destroyed. And on the last page, they show Laura, and they show her right before she bamfed out of there to get away from Mother Righteous. It looked like her daughter made contact with her through whatever those orbs that are going around Mother Righteous. So now Laura is bound and determined to take down Mother Righteous and get back her daughter. And like the most famous bald-headed wrestler would say,
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so.
in year 10, the Red Diamond Clique was worried about which one of the major powers out there in the universe was going to come clap their cheeks. In year 100, they just cruise around the universe clapping whose ever cheeks just happen to be standing in their way. And the main person you got to worry about is Hope Summers, aka Debo. My name is Dorian, this is SCM Comics, and we are covering the complete Sinister Sinister series with Immoral X-Men #2. Our story takes place at the edge of the Pact system. The Red Diamond Clique is trying to snatch the chains off the Creed, the Skrulls, and the Regellian. The Shi'ar used to be with them, but they split off, and we saw what happened to them. If you didn't see, playlist. No problem, your boy got you covered. The playlist is going to be in the description. You'll be looking for Nightcrawlers number 2. And this is why the British make such good villains. Kieron Gillen has given me a good bad guy line in all the Immortal and Immortal X-Men books, and in this one he does not disappoint. So Hope is just itching for some action, and she goes, "Hope to fleet. Who do you believe in?" And the words burst on the speakers, the most feared word across the galaxy: Hope. God, that's gangster. So she just bursts out the ship and she flies right past a Super Skrull. But don't worry, her boy Exodus takes the Super Skrull right out. How do we know? Because as he's coming down, he's holding one of his arms in his hand. So like Lil Wayne would say, now you know he dead. And then she just does a Black Widow landing. Now the reason why she's there is because the Red Diamond Clique needs eyes on the ground so they know exactly where to send the L-Bomb. The L-Bomb is a 4-gift chimera. The mutants that make up this chimera is Lila Cheney. Now she's like Nightcrawler, she's a teleporter, but she's like Nightcrawler times a million. She can do interstellar teleporting, so doesn't matter how far it is, as long as you know where it's at and you can see it, she can teleport it there. You also have Firestar. Now she has the ability to tap into the Earth's electromagnetic field and turn it into microwave radiation emissions. You see it started coming together. Now you also have Henry Leland. Now he is an old school dude from the Hellfire Club back in the 1970s and 80s. He has the ability to control gravity. He can increase the mass of like a person or an object. And then you got Micromax, who is pretty much Ant-Man. I mean, he can grow big or grow small. And that is your L-Bomb. And as you can see, it is extremely effective. So the ship is powered on the dead remains of clones. That's either clones killed in action and they was able to recover the body, or clones that died of old age, which this shouldn't be because there are plenty of mutants that live for a long time that Sinister could just give the gifts of. There's Logan, there's Mystique, there's Destiny, there's hell, Sinister himself has been around for centuries. But Hope is pretty much thinking to herself, now that they dropped the L-Bomb on the Creed and the Skrull, this war is pretty much over with. She wants a new war because she gets bored pretty easily. But before she goes to the Quiet Council about that, they're going to check on Mister Sinister because he has finished the ultimate chimera, and that is Rasputin 4. She is a 5-gift chimera and she's about to fight a whole bunch of Mystiques. And the first thing Charles says is, Rasputin 4, what happened to 1 through 3? And Sinister's like, 4 gifts is tricky. 5. I meant to say 5. I wasn't going to get on the first try, but I nailed it on the 4th one. So this is pretty much their mutant hero, the captain that's going to hop into the ship and go forth and help to take over other star systems and possibly other realities. And the first thing out of Redheaded Debo's mouth as she's kicking this Mystique clone that's dead is, so when we're going to work on the 6th gift. And Sinister's like, nope. 5 is the limit. We can't go any further than that. So now the original 4 mutants that were first Sinisterized in Immortal X-Men number 10 are pretty much talking amongst themselves, and they're like, if he can't do any better than this, then why do we need to keep him around? And they pretty much start to execute a plan to get rid of Mr. Sinister. So Sinister goes back to his quarters and he sees this book and he's wondering what the hell is doing there, and he picks it up and he says, this is old English. God, I hate magic. He also knows it's magic. And then Mother Righteous comes out of nowhere. It's like, well, I'm as magic can get. And Sinister's like, who are you? And she's like, answers are in the book. And he's like, what's in the book? She goes, answers are in the book. And he goes, coming from the shadows, acting all ominous. He's like, I invented this game. And she goes, really? Answers in the book. She goes, look, if you want the key, all you gotta say is thank you. And Sinister goes, thank you. And Mother Righteous goes, have fun, ducky. There goes that duck thing again. It must be a Sinister thing. So in the book, she pretty much explains to Mr. Sinister how they are both clones of the original Nathaniel Essex, and how there's not just the 2 of them, there's also 2 more. So she starts to explain the other clones. She goes, there's a cosmic power one, that's Orbis Solaris. You don't know him, but he's a big weirdo who floats around through the cosmos in a golf ball of his own piss. I was like, what the hell? She said, then there's post-humanity. That's Dr. Stasis. She's like, you know him, but don't worry. I offed him when he gave me a bit of lip. If you're surprised that Dr. Stasis is dead and you want to find out how, links in the playlist. You look up Nightcrawlers #1. Then she goes, there's magic. That's me, Mother Isis, at your service. And then there's the X Factor. That's you. So then she goes, now this is where it gets interesting. Different roads, same destination. To survive the machines, to escape the machines. If you become a dimension.
The word is Dominion. He'll be here all week, folks.
Outside of space and time, they can't touch you. And it just goes, yeah, I know. That's what you're shooting for. We're all shooting for it. Well, we're shooting for it. In the case of poor old Dr. Stasis. And then she goes, can we beat the machines and ascend to a higher plane of life? And just as importantly, can we beat each other? Because there's only room for one top dog in this game, and that's going to be me. To be continued. So Sinister says something interesting. Mother Isis goes, so how's your existential crisis going? And he goes, please, all you guys are imposters. I was born of the red diamond from Apocalypse. I remember that. So I'm the original. And then he goes, well, pretty much I'm going to win the race anyway because magic is nonsense. And then she goes, yeah, but you use DNA and you pretty much use 4 basic letters. That's A, C, T, G. Me, I use 26. So I'm better than you. Toodles. So Sinister's like, this is really good information, but for me to utilize it, I need to get to my Myris, and I need to do it before the Quiet Council deals with me. So he knows that the Quiet Council is pretty much going to be dealing with him pretty soon. So now on the next page, Hope pretty much is saying that how the Quiet Council agreed to move and get rid of Sinister once they're done with the Chitauri. Now, Chitauri are the race that Thanos used to attack Earth in the first Avengers movie. So then Hope does her thing again. She does her Black Widow landing, and she's next to Exodus. And then on the next page, she falls to the ground, and she's like, where in the hell did Exodus go? And Exodus starts talking to her mentally and is like, I'm far enough away till you can't copy my powers. And this is why I feel like Sync might be more powerful than Hope. Now, before you start calling me all kinds of names in the comments, let me explain. Now, Hope's mutant power is that she can copy any mutant's powers that is in her proximity. Sync can do the same thing. The difference between the two, there's 2 subtle differences. Hope can only copy other mutant powers. Sync has the ability to copy any mutant's powers, but he can also copy any superhuman's powers. So he can copy the Hulk, he can copy Captain America, he can copy Spider-Man, he can copy Venom. Now, Sync also has the ability to remember people's powers. Once you leave Hope's proximity, like Exodus says, you're just a girl with a gun. If it was Sync that was there, he has the ability to remember if he copied like maybe Spider-Man's powers, he can start using Spider-Man's powers, or the people that are down there, he can start copying their powers because they're not mutants, but they are superpowered individuals, and he can copy their powers. So the only thing that Hope might have over Sync is that when she copies your powers, she can use your powers to its maximum. Like, even if you can't use it to its maximum, she can use it to its maximum capability. But right now, it doesn't matter because, like Exodus said before, right now she's just a girl with a gun, and she's about to get murdered because the Quiet Council is done messing with her, and they'll just start over and clone her again. And then in true bad guy fashion, as she is fighting and losing to the Chitauri, she goes to herself, I might be the first of the Quiet Council to be taken out, but I damn sure won't be the last. So then it cuts to Sinister, and he's with Rasputin 4, and he injects her with something. He's like, this is the last treatment I need to give you. And then all of a sudden her diamond disappears. She's unsinisterized, and he's pretty much like, look, I made a mistake doing all these Sinisters. I need to undo this mistake, but to do it I need your help. And he pretty much gets on his knees and says, please help me recover my Myra so that I can restart this reality over, because this was a huge mistake. Plus, I don't want to die. So they were able to steal the starship that they're supposed to use to go conquer the rest of the universe in, and now they're on their way to try to find out where in the hell Sinister's secret lab is. Sometimes to have real growth as a person, you have to admit when you were wrong. I, unfortunately, had the
temerity, the unmitigated gall, the blasphemy
to question the great Al Ewing. With all the fire things that this man has created, I know of all people to just let this man cook. Because this book right here, whew, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, buckle up your seatbelts. It's not a long ride, but it's a good one. My name is Dorian. This is SCM Comics. We are covering the complete Sins of Sinister series with Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants #2. So ever since Sinister took over, if you don't have a red diamond on your forehead, or you're not under the protection of Mother Righteous or Orbis Solaris, if you're just out here in the universe, you're pretty much like,
God, if you listen, help!
So our story starts off with a very old looking Novar, aka Marvel Boy. Now he's a Kree warrior from alternate reality, and I guarantee he wishes he was back there right now. And who's ever showed up to their base, they're asking for cycle codes to identify who they are, and they're giving it to him. And then Novar goes, asks for the next cycle codes. And then the alien dude's like, we didn't generate the next cycle codes. He goes, ask anyway. And he asks, they give it to him. He generates it in his computer, and he's like, it's an exact match to what it was going to be next. And Novar goes, well, that explains who our guest is, and it's Destiny. Now, if you've been keeping up with all the books of the Sins of Sinister story arc like we have on the channel, then this next page will reward your due diligence. If not, your boy got you. You just click the link in the description to our Sins of Sinister playlist. So obviously the Brotherhood is giving Destiny all kinds of hell by keeping this timeline going, because it is directly her fault. And she goes in on Ironfire. She goes, even Exodus gave up his one-man religion. He left his Messiah to be eaten alive by the Shatari. She's talking about Hope Summers, and that happened in Immortal X-Men #2, which we just covered. So then he goes, well, that's Sinister's for you. She just puts her hand on her face and she's like, give me strength. And then she goes, you, Cable, or should I say X-Man. Now, for those of you that have read Age of Apocalypse, you know the significance of that statement. She's like, are you too worm-ridden to give a damn about your own daughter's death? And then he goes, this body is more history than it is humanity, and there's a dead loved one on every page, Irene Adler, and they will all be avenged. And then she just flips out, takes off her mask, and she goes, well, what about my dead, you maggot idol corpse? What about my bitches? What about Mystique? So on the next page, we have Destiny pleading with Mystique not to go out there and not to be reckless. And Mystique's like, look, you might not like this side, but this is who I am. And she's like, and we're the reason why this timeline is so shitty. And the Brotherhood needs our help to try to set this timeline straight. And she's like, I don't want to live forever stuck in your vault. And then you see her leading Freedom Force, which is her. There's a female Nova, and then you got Hercules looking like Jesse the Body Ventura and Predator with that Gatling gun.
payback time.
Destiny goes, she wanted to live forever with Mystique, or as much as forever as they can steal. That was enough for Destiny, but it was not enough for Mystique. Then she's like, a red diamond on your forehead, a gold ball on the flag, what's it all worth? And all you hear is somebody say, everything. And then you hear Commander on deck, and then Storm comes out looking old as hell in an old school Charles Xavier like hover chair. So the sparring match that Storm and Destiny are about to have is classic. So Destiny goes, how's your war against the entire galaxy? Storm's like, not as lonely as I suspect, nor as cold. And Destiny's like, I sure won't be when the Compact, that's Orbis Solaris people, come swarm this sector like flies. If I could find you, they could find you. And then the monstrous looking female behind Storm goes, oh yeah, is that a threat, Faceless? And then Storm's like, easy Ghana. So when Storm goes, obviously it's a threat. We don't have to be rude. Is there a carrot to go with that stick, Irene? How can my humble rebellion help you today? I'm not gonna lie, when I read that, I laughed my ass off. So now there's no games. Now we get the real Destiny. She goes, once we offer you a chance to end this cleanly. At the time, it was a lie. I simply had too much to lose. But now, Raven's dead, the galaxy's on fire, and we have lost everything. It's time to end this phase of the game, Aurora. It's time to kill Mara for real. Now you can't tell me that Al Ewing, Kieron Gillen, and Si Spurrier aren't living their best lives right now. Immortal X-Men #2 might as well have been straight out of Star Trek. And this is straight out of Star Wars. So they're in warp space, and it goes battleship to all X-fighters. Might as well be X-Wing fighters. This is the Accuser at the helm. Now, I don't know if that's the person who is piloting the ship or whether that's the name of the ship. If that's the name of the ship, that is a cool ass name for a ship. Shout out to Ronan. So you got Iron Fighter and X-Fighter Red, you got Shot Jock and X-Fighter Blue, and you got X-Man and X-Fighter Gold. So they come out of warp drive, and you see that Orvis Solaris has built a gold ball fortress the size of a moon. Now, what's that look like to you? I'll give you a hint. They even call it the Death Spear. I got a better name for it. Now, Orvis Solaris has everybody working for him. He has Skrulls, he has Doombots. It's pretty much a mixture of every alien you could think of in Marvel Universe. And he won't come out of his own spear for nothing. He's pretty much telling them inside the spear to send all their forces out there to meet the rebels. So all these little battle spears come out of the big spear. And then we see Core start to use her mutant ability on Destiny. Storm wants Destiny to pretty much predict the future, and she's going to use X-Men to broadcast it to the crew. And then Destiny's like, okay, but I can be projecting their infinite deaths. Even I can gain a system, but for so long. Raven's death is proof of that. So then Destiny goes, the future is set, we will win. And then it cuts to Ironfire. He's visited by Mother Righteous. Now, Mother Righteous is messing with Ironfire, but pretty much she's there because she wants a ringside seat to see what exactly happens. So then the scroll goes, what's wrong with our troops? They can't draw a bead on them. How are they so lucky? And Orvis Solaris is like, it's not luck, it's destiny. And then he realizes, he's like, we sent all of our troops out there and there's nobody here to defend us. And it was like, close the hatch before, but it's too late. And they get through the hatch door. So as soon as they make it into the spear, all you hear is Storm say, do it. And you hear Destiny go, till next time, my love. And sees a sword cuts right down the middle of her. So then Marvel Boy is like, all right, it's time to end this. But then Storm surprisingly is like, no, we're not just going to end this. And she's pretty much starts to say that because Arakko was destroyed doesn't mean we need to destroy this universe. This universe still supports life, which also supports hope. And then she's like, Sinister's lab is an abomination which we need to defuse. And if we can't defuse it, then we must protect it with our lives. And the X-Man's like, that's a nice thought. But once they get those hatch doors back open, it's going to be literally shooting fish in a barrel. So Cora starts using her mutant power on Storm, and Storm used her power to create a wormhole, which she was able to take Sinister's lab and themselves through, which I didn't know wormholes were a weather phenomenon, but hell, comics. So now this is the best part of the comic. Orvis Solaris is beside himself. He's like, they just made a clean getaway with the lab, which all that data would take a millennia to recalculate. He's like, a controlled wormhole just ate him up. And to add insult to injury, my life's work was destroyed by a blastic magic spell. So then the scroll goes, Overlord, there's surely something that can be done. And Orvis Solaris is like, you're right. There's always something that can be done. Computer, switch off life support. This dude just pulled a Matt Hardy and deleted himself. Orvis Solaris is like the warden from Shawshank Redemption. He was not about to be disgraced, or at least he wasn't going to live to see it. But he is not the only person to leave his people without a leader. Because as we turn to the last page, we see Cora's crying because she realizes that Storm gave everything she had to create that wormhole, and now she has passed. So SCM Nation, I ask this question. Will the Brotherhood honor Storm's dying wish and protect Sinister's lab? Because we know that the timeline eventually is going to be reset and they're going to have to kill the Myras. But how's it going to happen? Is it going to be one of them that does it, or is it going to be somebody else? let me know how you feel like this is going to end in the comments. Okay, SCM Nation, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I really thought that this book was going to go in a certain direction. When I thought it was going to go right, it went left. But that is not a bad thing. My name is Dorian. This is SCM Comics. We are covering the complete Sinister Sinister series, and today we're covering Immoral X-Men number 3. So as the thumbnail says, we are 1,000 years into Sinister Sinister, and our narrator for this book is Rasputin 4. So she says that she feels like she's made of steel emotionally and not just physically, because she feels like Sinister is starting to break. She's like, they have chased down leads for lifetimes, and they are no closer than when they first started. Now, this latest lead has led them to one of X's prayer worlds. Now, there are a bunch of these type of worlds, and you'll see why that is important here in a second. Now, somebody on this world might have information about where Sinister's lab might be located, and it's her job to try to find out the information without Exodus actually catching on. So as you can see on the next page, Exodus is huge. I mean, if he hasn't sent it to Godhood, he is really, really close. So when it comes to Hope Summers and her being the mutant messiah, he pretty much shook that off like Taylor Swift. So Sinister is telling Rasputin to hurry up, but to be careful, because if Exodus realizes that he's still alive, he says it's going to be bad for everybody, but especially him. Might be 1,000 years, but he's still Sinister. Now, the reason why they call these prayer worlds, because all these people that are in these pods are just praying jubilations to Exodus. That's what Rasputin said. And they're like on loop, so they're continuously saying good praises to Exodus. So she's trying to search through it, and she said it's trying to find like a needle in a haystack. But she eventually finds something, and then she messes up, and she says a prayer of thanks, not to Exodus. And obviously Exodus finds out. So she teleports back to the ship, and I imagine the conversation kind of went like this. Rasputin gets back and she goes, all right, let's go. Sinister's like, did you get it? Rasputin's like, yeah, let's go. And Sinister's like, he's following you, isn't he? And she goes, yeah, let's go. So Sinister's like, bloody hell, he's after us. We got no other choice. And he sends like a distress call to the neighboring prayer world. So Exodus sends out this crazy psychic blast, and it's about to hit the ship and destroy it, when all of a sudden it just disappears, and he goes, what? And all of a sudden this other Exodus is coming his way, and he goes, heretic. And then I guess we could say the assistant Exodus goes, heretic. So the reason why this is happening, and this is only an assumption, is that I guess they abandoned a long time ago there only being one clone active at a time, because there are a bunch of Exodus, and I guess there was a war that happened, or at least that's what Rasputin 4 was explaining, and I guess there was a ceasefire, and each Exodus would stay on their own prayer world, but if one was launched, the neighboring one would be launched too, you know, as almost like you launch your nukes, now we're gonna launch our nukes, that kind of thing. And then Sinister goes, mutually assured destruction. It's a classic. Let's go. So then Rasputin 4 goes on to say how these two Exodus sets are going to pretty much go at it, and the body count's going to be enormous, and she would be sad by it, but she's heartened because the body count has already been enormous, and it's been enormous for like hundreds of years. She goes, we're in a universe where planets of corpses orbit dead stars. So Sinister goes to Rasputin and asks her, did she decode the message? And she goes, yes, I have. She says, is in a space-time location, and the message is in Old English, and it says, we should be on the same side. And Sinister, the look on his face, you can tell he instantly knows who this is. So as they're traveling to this location, we really get to see how bad things are. So we see this crazy ass hole in space that I guess Magic made when she tried to bring Limbo into reality. To me, Magic was just as crazy as Hope was. So then they're passing through a war zone where Dream, I guess that's Professor Xavier, and the Red Diamond Fleet, that's Emma Frost, have been beefing, and this is the outcome of that beef. And then they also have to avoid being chased down by Kitty Pryde because she's still doing the pirate thing, except for she took it to a galactic level and she has a bunch of different ships and they're all following her. And I guess once she catches you, she pretty much disposes of you and then takes your ship. And I guess Sinister goes to Rasputin and tells her that Kitty Pryde used to be one of the kindest people on the Quiet Council. And Rasputin's like, I kind of find that hard to believe. But then she goes, I suppose all things are relative. So they finally get to their destination and Rasputin goes, for it to get all the way out here, it would have had to left Earth even earlier than what we did. And Sinister's like, I just need you to retrieve it. So she goes out and gets it. She doesn't even bother to put on a spacesuit because for I guess a little bit of a time she can survive in space, or she can adapt to survive in space. And she retrieved the item, but she doesn't know what it is. So she gives it to Sinister and she's like, what is it? And he goes, this is technology that is very old. I used to use it back before I was me. And then Rasputin goes, you look unsettled, sir. And he goes, because I am. I want to listen to this, but I want to listen to it alone, so please do not disturb me. So he goes to his private quarters and he puts it together and it's like a sonograph. I believe it's a sonograph. Don't quote me on it. I'm not sure, but I believe that's what it is. And he starts listening to it and it's Destiny. And she just starts spilling the beans. Or is it T now? It might be T. I think it's saying it's T now. Go with T. About how her, Mystique, Orbit Solaris, and Storm stole Sinister's lab. His lab. Why would she say Sinister's lab when she's talking to Sinister directly? Somewhat directly. His lab. My bad. How the lab is being held at Orbit Solaris' war farm. At least it was being held there. But if you read Storm in the Brotherhood of Mutants #2, we all know it's being held in a totally different place. If you didn't read it, your boy got you. Just click the link in the description. She also explains the reason why she did it, because this is the timeline where Mystique lived the longest. But since he's listening to this message, Mystique is dead, and now it's time to end this timeline. She also says that once he resets the timeline, that she will join him. So if you read Immortal X-Men, then you know that Destiny's always been on Sinister, and she doesn't trust him at all. But she wants to work with him this time because she doesn't trust Sinister with his plans, but she feels like if she's there to help, then maybe there might be a timeline where Mystique lives. So obviously, as this is going on, Rasputin 4 is eavesdropping. So Sinister thinks that she's done talking, and he goes, well, thank you, Irene. I'll consider your offer. I'll probably reject it, but it's only the polite thing to. Then all of a sudden, all you hear is one more thing. I know you're trying to create your own dominion, but trust me, you fail. I'm not trying to trick you. I'm just letting you know you fail. The only way for us to all to survive is for you to give up on it. And Rasputin 4 has heard enough. She now realizes that Sinister has lied to her, that they're not trying to save the universe. They're actually trying to destroy the universe. So now obviously Rasputin 4 is ready to kill Sinister. Sinister all of a sudden makes these guns appear. And she's like, anti-phase pistols. She's like, sir, I'm assaulted. And she attacks Sinister. He gets to like some cargo bay and then closes the door. And Sinister's like, I gave you the finest stable gene cocktail I could. Telepathy, a steel body, intangibility, force fields, a healing factor. He's also like, I didn't even put in my usual self-destruction in, and I gave you free will. And he blows the compartment that she's in, and he's like, but I didn't give you flight. That was cold. Excuse my oldness. And then he's like, a shame. She was excellent work. My finest. Perhaps when I get back home, I'll make another. But first, I need to do this dance with Destiny. Now that was some really good play on words. So he's flying back to Earth, of all places, and he's passing by Saturn and Jupiter, and he's like, the Kimji Uridu, I think that's how you pronounce his name, excuse me if I mispronounced it. He was a mutant whose flesh, he was composed of flesh and machine parts, which he can mold to anything he can imagine. So you know Sinister had to mess with that, and now his power is like consuming planets, as you do. And then he's like, in this hell universe, this too is also where I will hide, on a planet that is pretty much comprised of cancer cells. Then all of a sudden, all you hear is doom, only doom. And then we see it says broken down Doombot, and then all of a sudden, the original Myra who is more machine than she is human now, steps out and goes to Sinister like, you have changed. And he pretty much tells her, I have a way to fix all this. Would you follow me? And she goes to the edge of the universe. And he's like, good. That's exactly where we're going. So now we're at the court of the Red Diamond. This is pretty much Emma Frost's outfit. And the reason why they call it the Red Diamond is not just because of what's on her forehead. It's because she has become the living crimson gem of Sidorak. So now this intrigues me. Because now I want to know, how strong is Emma Frost right now? Because when King Markle had the gem, he became the Juggernaut with a portion of Sidorak's power. But she literally is the gem. So does she only have a small portion of Sidorak's power, or does she have like a hell of a lot more? Because Sidorak is a beast. He's one of the old guys that got chased away by the Demiurge. The Demiurge is a certified beast, but don't take nothing away. Sidorak is nothing to play with. But that's another discussion for another day. So Beast is there and he's looking crazy as hell. And he tells Emma that he's had AI systems pretty much set up everywhere, pretty much since almost the beginning. And one of the Doombots is one of his AI systems. And he lets her know that pretty much Sinister is still alive and that he recruited Myra McTaggart to go look for something. And then that's when she starts putting two and two together. She always knew that he was hiding something, but she didn't know what. She found out a little bit when she was putting boot to heel to him. But now if he's recruiting Myra, now she knows that he must have cloned Myra and he can pretty much reset this whole timeline. And she can't have that because, in her words, she's almost won. So let me start off by saying that I perfectly understand that this is a comic book, and to tell a good story, sometimes you have to leave common sense out of it. So in saying that, none of this stuff with Krakoa could be possible without Sinister. He is literally the smartest person in the room when it comes to the Quiet Council. I completely understand that he didn't know where the original Myra was at, but he has spent 1,000 years trying to look for this Myra engine, and all he had to do was find the original Myra, use her signature to find where the engine was at. Now Destiny knew where Myra was at, that's how he found her so fast. I just can't believe that he didn't come up with this a very long time ago and just spent his time trying to find the original Myra versus trying to find the Myra engine, which, as we can see, took 1,000 years to do. As Jay-Z would say, this is just my thoughts. This is just something that I'm feeling at the time. Back to the story. So now it switches back to Myra and Sinister, and Sinister pretty much fills in Myra on what he's been doing for over 1,000 years. And she's like, I can't believe you kept this a secret from me. And he goes, well, if you would have found out, you would have got a little pissed. And when you get a little pissed, you get a little punchy. So they make it to the World Farm where the Myra engine is being held, which I know if you read Storm in the Brotherhood of Mutants, you know that they took that somewhere else. But you also know that over Solaris pulled him out Hardy and deleted himself. So if he's not there, why not take it back there? And then as soon as they get there, they get shot out the sky. But they survive, even the Doombot. And they walk up on this dude that looks just like Odin. I mean, when I first read this, I'm like, what the hell's Odin doing here? That is not Odin. That is John Ironfire. And it's funny because Sinister goes, so you're telling me that Storm's attack dog now has an attack dog? And John's like, has Emma run out of scouts? And Sinister has Supremers let him know that he's not with Emma and that he is the original Sinister. And Sinister's like, if Emma knows, then she's on her way and this place can't fall to Emma. And John's like, look, we've been surviving for 900 years. Whatever she got, we can endure. Because the goddess says, if we fall, then the universe falls with it. And Sinister's like, yes, your goddess is right, but I also have some additional information that you need to know. So on the last page, we have Rasputin 4 still floating in space. Like I said before, she can survive for a little bit, but she can't survive forever. And then somebody's talking to her telepathically saying, if you want revenge, I can help you with that. And Rasputin 4 is like, whoever you are, you got a deal. I normally don't start the videos like this, but this comic book, the way it ended, had my blood boiling. I mean, I was all up in my feelings, and I traditionally am a person who roots for the bad guy. In saying all that, that means Al Ewing did a fantastic job My name is Dorian, this is SEM Comics, and we are continuing our coverage of the Mister Sinister series with Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants, number 3. Our story starts off at the World Farm, where John Ironfire has been running this place for 900 years. And not only is he still alive, but Cora the Burning Heart is still alive too. And they are discussing how Emma of the Crimson Gem of Sidorak is coming to clap them cheeks. So John Ironfire is telling Cora how one time Mother Righteous asked him what was his biggest regret, and he said it was not trusting the Storm. And he's asking himself, well, can I trust her now? And then Cora's like, that's not what you should be asking yourself. You should be asking yourself, can you trust him? So John and Cora leave the throne room and are walking and talking. And John goes, I wish X-Men wouldn't have fallen to Orphan Madrox. Yes, people, they made a chimera out of Orphan Maker and Jamie Madrox, and it killed Cable. And John Ironfire is pretty much saying he wishes that he was still around so he could seek his counsel. Now what Cora says next is so important, I'm gonna read it word for word. He tell you the same thing. You're putting your faith in the devil himself, the father of all sinisters. To give back a North Star you have long learned to navigate without. It's folly, John, and it's against our oldest ways. Even out here, at the edge of everything, we are of Veraco. We're not afraid of a life that ends. Now that statement is so important because as we go on, actually before we go on, look at this face. If you saw somebody looking like that, would you trust them? Hell no, you wouldn't. So in a nutshell, 1,000 years later, John has the Brotherhood version of the Five. And who's he trusting with the DNA? Like Cora said, the devil himself. And while that's going on, we still have the Red Diamond Princess that's still on her way to clap some cheeks, but especially Sinister's cheeks. So on the next page, we see the Five going to work. You got Old Oda supplying the egg. You got the devil himself with the DNA sample. You got Krona the commander giving an order to live and bear life. You got Bloodroot the Bone Shaper supplying the veins of the limbs and the flesh. You got Jenna the Mind Flayer taking memories from the king and supplying them to the egg. And then you got Cora the Burning Heart who's amplifying everybody's power. And with that, the goddess has returned. John Ironfire is crying and Sinister is being sinister. So now she only has the memories of John Ironfire as he remembers her. So any memories of when she was with the X-Men or anything like that, she does not have. And Sinister, to his credit, even tells him that, like, this is not the Storm that you knew. The Storm that you knew is still dead. But they don't have time to worry about that part because, like Jazzy Fizzle would say, the princess is here and it's not Sierra. Now, she has a bunch of 4 gift chimeras. You got High Summers, Loud Hailer, Hot Claws, and Sage Advisor. And they are wrecking shop. You got Emma, who you got people referring to as the headmistress, and she's like, yes, quite literally, is getting into some kind of bath solution. And as the people are drawing her bath, they're being killed on the spot. And we see that she is the sinister diamond centerpiece of a huge robot of herself, equipped with a diamond whip for that ass. So of course everybody there is freaking out, and somebody says, Aurora, protect us. And Emma's like, I heard that. You broke the first commandment, praying to another goddess, and just whips the hell out of the World Farm. So now the 5, John Ironfire, Sinister, and Storm are now going to battle. The Doombot is trapped underneath some rubble. Sinister runs over, takes off his hand, and he's like, and now I have a gun. So this fight scene is pretty chaotic, but I'm gonna try my best to navigate you through. So the 4 gift chimeras are still whooping ass and taking names. Storm pretty much comes in and lets everybody know that they might have 4 gifts, but she's an Omega level mutant and she starts wrecking shop. And then to make her even stronger, Cora gives the rest of her power to Storm. So now we see that some of the 5 and John Ironfire's dog is taken out by Loud Hailer. Cora might be depowered at the moment, but she's not helpless. She picks up a sword and she starts taking out some of the chimeras. You got John and Sinister also taking out the chimeras, but Bloodroot isn't as lucky and he gets hit by one of the chimeras. Cora comes to his aid, and then you got High Summer that just takes both of them out. So on the next page you got Storm butt naked in space staring down Emma, Now you can tell she created some kind of atmosphere, force field to protect herself. And Emma is just talking all kinds of shit to her. She's like, look, if this was the old Storm, I might be worried. But you, I'm not worried about you. Not at all. And then she's like, you didn't even have time to learn your powers. And Storm hits her with one of the coldest lines I've ever heard Storm say. And then Storm's like, no, I haven't learned. Also haven't learned how to lose. I haven't learned limits, barriers, rules, or fear. All I know is the play of the living sky, the wind, the seasons, and the lightning. And she takes Emma out like that with no problem. But there is one problem. She might be protected from the elements of space, but she is not protected from the radiation that's coming from that explosion, and she gets hit dead on. So she falls to the ground right in front of John, and she's telling John to stay away because of the radiation. He ain't hearing it, and he's trying to pick her up, cover her up, and comfort her. He's like, because of you, we have a shot. Even though Beast is coming, we have a shot. So Storm is telling John Ironfire that it's good to live, and she's glad that she was alive, but she's not afraid to. And before she can finish the statement, she dies in his arms. Now, John doesn't even have a moment to shed one tear before Sinister walks behind him with that Doom handgun and goes, funny, I'm not afraid either, and shoots him in the head. Now, Kieron Gillen, throughout this whole Sins of Sinister, had me to the point to where I was actually feeling sorry for Sinister and starting to root for Sinister. And then Al Ewing says, no, he's still that dude. And I just want to get this in before I end this video. Al Ewing has been doing some of the best writing for Storm that I've read in a very long time. X-Men Red is fantastic. The whole becoming the reason of Arakko, her relationship with Magneto, I mean, it's been great. And he essentially killed Storm 3 times in this. I said essentially. I know she didn't die in the first book, but tell me you didn't think she was going to die. I've been loving this whole Sins of Sinister series. I feel like all 3 writers have been doing a fantastic job. And in saying that, Si Spurrier, you're on deck. So hopefully this book, if you were feeling bad about Sinister or if you were rooting for Sinister, Al Ewing got you realigned to where you should be again. And in saying that, we're going to end this video the way that Ernie with Blur Without Fear ends his podcast. Mister Sinister, you could go to hell. So the ending of this comic book is pretty crazy. Actually, the last third of the comic is pretty crazy. And I'm not going to lie, I was shocked at the end. Now, some of you comic experts that are watching this probably weren't shocked. I don't fall into that category because I was shocked as hell. My name is Dorian. This is SEM Comics. We are covering the complete Sins of Sinister series with Nightcrawlers number 3. So the book starts off explaining exactly what Mother Righteous has been doing for the past 900 years since we last left off with her, and also how she's pretty much had the reliquary perilous ready for centuries now. She's just been waiting. So we see this chimera that's fighting all these Loki variants that his name is Silver Mercator. He looks just like Epsilon Mercator. And if you know who Epsilon Mercator is, then you know you don't need to mix his powers with anybody else's. He's a reality warper, just as powerful as Franklin Richards, the Molecule Man Owen Reese, the Beyonder, Matthew Malloy. Rob would kill me if I didn't mention Mad Jim Jasters, like Rob would ever watch this video. In other words, the dude is close to godlike as you can get. Then you want to throw in the Silver Surfer with the Power Cosmic. How do you even clone the Power Cosmic? Maybe I'm thinking about this too much. In saying that, I guess that was a long-winded way to say that these Loki variants have no chance. And Mother Righteous uses Scuffle to send in the Night Queen so they can steal some Infinity Dust. And then you have Anti-Fortune. She's still around, in a sense. She's a cross between Domino and Nightcrawler. She's so lucky that when she died, she came back as a ghost. And she's still serving Mother Righteous. And she sends her to play a game to win the guts of the Peregrine Child, which if you didn't read The Death of Doctor Strange, you don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Pretty much it's a Si Spurrier send a shout out to Jet McKay. And then you got the Bruise still beefing with the Red Diamond clique. I think these are the ones that are under Emma. So once they're done fighting and everybody's dead, then her and the Night Queen come in, and lo and behold, they retrieve a Phoenix egg. So, like we said in the beginning, the Reliquary Perilous is pretty much ready. She's just going around gathering up other items just because that's what she's been doing for centuries. But the Reliquary Perilous doesn't get her into Sinister's lab. She still needs a way in there. The Reliquary Perilous is for something after she gets into Sinister's lab, which we'll find out at the end of this video. But the way she does get into that lab, oh my god, it's one of the best parts of the video. And we're almost there. Just give me a second. So if you look around, there's fungi everywhere, and that is Dr. Nemesis. He's the reason why they've been able to keep cloning the Night Queen, even though they're covered in fungus. And he was able to even take out the Sinister gene, so none of the clones now have the red diamond, but they're like hypochondriacs. So even though they don't have the Sinister gene, they can still hear the voice. But they probably really don't hear the voice, they just think they hear the voice. So Mother Rice's sugar pill is to go ahead and take the leap into Sinister's lab. Why stop tradition? And then on the next page, we see that Dr. Nemesis has grown to the point to where he is the ship. And he's just talking to Mother Rice's telepathically. And Dr. Nemesis even states that because of what he calls them, the kamikaze idiots, has been carrying his spores to Sinister's lab, they know for a long time that the lab is at the World Farm and where the World Farm is located. So then she looks on the screen and she notices that Sinister has actually made it to the World Farm. If you want to know what happened, we covered it on the channel. Just check out Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants #3. The link will be in the description. So then Dr. Nemesis is like, I wonder if you missed your chance. Will Sinister reach the lab before you get a chance to deploy your unscientific payload? And in true Mother Righteous form, she goes, I ain't missing shit. She goes, he's not going to be able to reach the Myras, but this is what I need you to do, Dr. Nemesis. I need you to take all your spores that you ever sent out, and I need you to expand outward, and I need you to find something for me. Now, she doesn't explain exactly what she wants him to find, but we'll find out later. But she pretty much tells him, look, I put all my faith into one thing. And that faith is love. She was banking on the love of Destiny and Mystique, and how Destiny will convince Mystique to steal Sinister's lab because this is the timeline where Mystique lives the longest. So on the next page, we see that Freedom Force, that's a group that Mystique made, that Mystique was the only one who died. Everybody else in Freedom Force is still there, and how Destiny will decide to reset the timeline since now Mystique's dead. There's no reason for this timeline to keep going, but unfortunately she fails. And if you want to know what happened, you could check out Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants #2. The link will be in the description. So as she's pondering on this, all of a sudden Dr. Nemesis goes, Mother, an object is projecting, and she just cuts him off and goes, show me. Once she sees what it is, she just smiles and goes, let the rapture begin. So now that she feels like she has what she needs, she tells Auntie Fortune to pretty much send all the Night Queens to their deaths. God, this one's cold. So then she tells Auntie Fortune to transport her there so she can see what's going on. And on the next page, all we see is this huge Galactus Ghost Rider. Yes, Galactus Ghost Rider. So this is what happened. I'm gonna try to break this down the best way I can. When the Sinister Strain was going on, all the Spirit Avengers left Earth because pretty much everybody was Sinister, so there was nobody to avenge. Now, when it comes to Galactus, he likes to consume worlds that has life, a bunch of life. The more life there is on the world, the more he's fed. And again, for those who have been keeping up with the series, in Immoral X-Men #3, Rasputin 4 clearly said how there are a bunch of worlds that are dead. They're just spinning corpses going around stars. So you know that's pissing off Galactus. So Galactus has a lot of hatred for this reality. Hatred leads to vengeance. Vengeance is exactly what the Spirit of Vengeance is looking for. And it took not one, but all of the Spirits of Vengeance to take over Galactus. So the one thing that the Spirit of Vengeance probably hates more than this sinister reality, that is the Spirit of Variance, and that's who Vox Ignis is. And they've been chasing after him for 56 years. So Vox Ignis is trying to explain this to Mother Righteous, and she can give two you-know-whats about his situation. The only thing she cares about right now is what is about to happen next. And what's about to happen next is crazy. So she brings up how the Sinister shot Thanos in the head with a shrunken down Juggernaut who continued to grow after he passed through Thanos' head, and how he continued on to the cosmos forever. Well, I thought that was a one-off. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm like, well, that happened. It was pretty crazy, but that happened. And kind of forgot all about it. Well, Destiny didn't. So she had to have done this when she was still in good with Orbis Solaris. She somehow tweaked the path of the world for him without him knowing. And now, 1,000 years later, it is in the direct path of the Juggernaut that is coming at a crazy amount of speed. And the reason why she wasn't giving Vox Ignis the time of day about his situation is because she also knew that Galactus, or should we say Ghost Rider Galactus, will also be in Juggernaut's direct path. Juggernaut goes through Galactus' head just like he went through Thanos' head, and he takes out the force field in Sinister's lab. Now, how did she know that Destiny knew all this? I have no unearthly idea, but she does. And even though an unstoppable force just hit it directly, the force field is still up. So Mother Righteous goes to Anti-Fortune and goes, could you please? Anti-Fortune's like, for the spark. And she teleports right into it, and then she brings it down. So now that they're in the lab, she finally reveals exactly what the Whirlcore Perilous is. So in essence, it is a heart that has all of the magical items that she's gathered throughout the centuries, and it's a virus that she plans on using, but it's also a virus that once it eradicates the timeline, it will bring back all the information from that timeline and give it to her. Now, Sinister has this in place too. The reason why the lab is so impenetrable is because when he goes and he kills one of the Myras and it resets the timeline, the force field protects it from that timeline changing. So all the information that happened in that timeline he has, and he's able to pretty much know what to do next, but more importantly, what not to do again, especially if it didn't work. But the only way that works is if he's in the lab and is protected by the force field, which we see is no more. So to get this magical virus jump started, she needs some magical energy, which she takes it right out of Banshee by stealing the Spirit of Variance. So Banshee's about 1,000 years old, so he is about to die extremely fast here. And the reason why she stole Wagnerine's baby, God, I hate that name, is because she's going to use its spiritual energy to finish filling up the Whirlcore Perilous. And that's when Lord Nightcrawler comes out of nowhere saying, give me back my baby. So she cuts the hell out of Mother Righteous, and Mother Righteous is like, I thought you died a long time ago. Alright, let's break this down. Nightcrawler is half demon, and she's also half of what Mystique is, because obviously Mystique gave birth to him. We all know how long Mystique could live. Plus, also, she is Wolverine's offspring, in a sense. And we all know how long Wolverine can live. So, if anything, she probably live forever. So Mother Righteous starts using her magic to take out the claws out of the hands and the feet of Nightcrawler Laura, and then she's about to pretty much do her in when old man Banshee comes to the rescue and stabs the hell out of Mother Righteous right in her foot. So then he tries to do the Banshee scream and he just starts coughing. I'm not gonna lie, I just started laughing my ass off at this moment. So now Mother Righteous is about to do Banshee in, which I'm thinking to myself, just give it 5 minutes, he should be dead, when all of a sudden all you see is Laura Kinney's tail go right through Mother Righteous' chest, because like Laura Kinney says, everybody forgets about the tail. So she falls down, and if she's not dead, she's definitely on her way. And then Laura Kinney, or Nightcrawler Laura, I apologize, grabs her baby, kisses it, and then she bamps right on out of there. So now Mother Righteous is laying there dying, Banshee is pretty much sitting there dying, and the Whirlcore Paris is sitting on the floor. All of a sudden all you see is a hand come, and Banshee goes and then gets shot in the head by the original Myra. Lord have mercy. She now has Whirlcore Perilous, and she is in the lab. What is about to happen in this last issue? No hook today, people. My name is Dorian, and this is SCM Comics, and we are covering the conclusion of the Sins of Sinister series with Sins of Sinister Dominion #1. The book opens up with Ghost Rider Galactus right outside the war farm, and you got Myra talking to Sinister, asking him, is this what you wanted? He goes, no, Myra, this is hell. And even if it is by my own making, it still makes it no less than a hell. And then he goes, speaking of hell, where in the hell are you at, woman? So she goes, outside the vault, where they keep in your lab. But don't panic. You know he's panicking. Hell, considering the circumstances, I'll be panicking too. You would too. She's like, I can't get into the lab yet. The rock guys got a seal, and they're not letting anybody in. She goes, hell, I don't think they could get in even if they wanted to. But what's up with Ironfire? Did you get him to change his mind? He goes, I changed Ironfire's mind by pushing it out of his skull. You know, I almost forgot that son of a bitch did that. Please let me know in the comments. Did that piss you off? Or is it just business as usual because it's Mister Sinister? Again, please let me know in the comments. Sinister is like, I could make my way into the lab if we had more time, which we don't. And then even though Emma's fashionably dead, you know he's excited about that. But Dr. McCoy is probably going to be making a play here soon. I like how he called him doctor. A lot of people forget that Beast is a doctor. So now he's just racking his brain because Destiny said that she arranged a way to get into the lab, but he's wondering how the hell that's going to happen. And then all of a sudden Myra's like, the Marauder has picked up on something small coming this way at a fast rate of speed. So then he remembers how they fired the Juggernaut via railgun into Thanos' head. So he remembers that they got Thanos' exact location via precog, but he didn't know who. It was a blind lead. And he's like, blind. Destiny. And he goes, maybe we should work together. That goes to show that even the devil can have second thoughts. And then we get to see the events that happen in Nightcrawlers #3. How Kane Marco goes through Galactus Ghost Rider, through the World Farm, but more importantly, through Sinister's lab. So then Myra's like, that did it. We're in. And Sinister's like, what? No, Myra, not yet. Wait, I got plans to upload. And Myra's like, somebody got to reset this timeline. And Sinister's like, don't you dare. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is panic. But he doesn't have time to panic because his huge kunai on chains comes and spears the hell out of him because my boy Ironfire is alive. God, he's becoming one of my favorite characters. So Sinister's like, I shot you. How? And Ironfire is like, I could turn my blood into metal. Before every battle like this one, I give my blood a little coating. My blood's useful. Your blood, all it does is keep you alive, and that has no use at all. And even though Ironfire is choking the hell out of him, the only thing he's worried about is Myra getting into that lab, and he is screaming her name. So Sinister's like, stop, don't do it. I need to upload my data, my plans. And Ironfire is like, any plans you had besides dying is over. So while all that craziness is going on, we see that Dr. McCoy, like Sinister said, is on his way. And he is surrounded by clones of the Stepford Cuckoos and Namor. And he comes to the conclusion that he's going to probably need some help to be able to get to the Myra engine. So he decides to talk to somebody he knows he shouldn't be talking to. And one of the Stepford Cuckoos even says, like, this is a huge risk. And he goes, look, I'm the clever one. You're the clone help. As soon as I read that part, I thought to myself, he's about to die very soon. And he decides to talk to Charles Xavier himself. Now, Beast feels like because Charles taught him how to put up mental blocks and protect himself from other psychics, that it will work on him. This was a classic case of that I taught you everything that you know, but I ain't teach you everything that I know. Once Charles reads his mind, he's like, oh no, I gotta be present for this. So he astral projects himself through Beast, and while he's doing that, I guess he just decided to shut down his mind, so Beast is gone. He pretty much does the same thing to the Stepford Cuckoos, and now Charles Xavier is on his way. And not only is he on his way, but this big Ego the Living Planet size version of himself is also on his way. And they waste no time. They're already hitting the world farm with psychic waves. Now, I'm not gonna lie, what comes up next is a cool ass moment. So Ironfire's like, our defenses are down, our psychics are dead, we're in trouble. And Sinister's like, I have my own defenses. You're in trouble. And he's like, I did have this Omega level psychic that could have helped you, but she's dead now. talking about Rasputin 4. So the Iron Fire cuts open his head, and Sinister is like, what are you doing, man? And Iron Fire is like, have you been paying attention? I can transform my blood into metal, any metal, and I lead a Brotherhood, so I should look the part. And we see he transformed it into Magneto's helmet. And Sinister is like, Magneto's old trick. Lifted from the Juggernaut, of course, but a good trick. Oh, you are very interesting. I wish we had more time to get acquainted. And Ironfire is like, agree to disagree. And he's about to kill him right on the spot. And Siren's like, no, don't kill me. You need to stop Xavier, and I can help. So the Ironfire is like, what are you saying? And Sinister's like, look, Magneto's fine trick is one thing, but you need more power. You cannot fight him as you are, and I can make you more powerful. And he shows he has a vial of Bobby Drake's blood. He's like, blood is 90% water. This will give you all you need. I see you thinking. You think you'd be quick enough to take this from me and smart enough to activate it yourself? And if you let me go, I'll run off to try to restart the universe? And you're right, but I can be stopped by someone. I'm just one man. Charles cannot. If Charles gets his hands on the Myra engines, yes, the universe will keep existing, but it will be his universe. If you don't stop him, we will all be stuck here, trapped in his sick dream. Ironfire is like, damn it. So the Ironfire lets him inject him, and he goes, you should know, I'm going to kill you. And he goes off to fight Xavier, the living planet, I guess you can call him. And he's like, hold on, I know that helmet. Are you? And he's like, Eric. And Ironfire's like, nah, but you should know. He was right. So while the two behemoths are fighting outside the World Farm, Sinister is making his way to his lab carrying his Doombot handgun, which is also a handgun, which should make that a double entendre, right? If not, I'm pretty sure somebody in the comments is going to correct me, very sarcastically. So Sinister goes, kill me, join the queue. Everybody's going to die today. So he's looking around and he sees all these skulls and he's like, somebody got an early start. We're early because these things are old. He's pretty much seeing all the Nightcrawlers that sacrifice themselves for Mother Righteous and the Spark. And then he's like, oh, my lab, my beautiful lab. He sees Myra at the entry. He's like, no, Myra. And he just starts busting shots at her, talking about, get away from my Myras. And she's like, my Myras? It's like, you turned me into a machine. And Sinister's like, have you seen yourself? You turn yourself into a machine. He might be an a-hole, but he does have a point. So the Sinister's like, what happened here? And why is Mother Rice is bleeding all over my nice clean floor? So Myra's like, she had a scheme, she broke in, but her stooges turned on her. She had a plan, but it went wrong. And Sinister's like, that's nice. She was so smug. Pot, meat, kettle. So Myra's like, she has a plan that goes wrong, she has a heart in her forehead, and she's smug. She reminds me of somebody. And Sinister's like, whatever. Now let me do my upload. So of course Myra's like, hell no. And she starts busting at him. Sinister's like, let me upload my files, woman. Then we can do the reset. She's like, no, you're not learning from this. You turning me into a glorified hard drive. And Sinister's like, to be glorified by definition is to be glorious. Now, I can't be the only person that Kieron Gillen just put on game when it comes to this whole glorified thing. Because I've been using it wrong for a long time. Let me know in the comments if you're the same way. So Sinister starts laying out the scenario to Myra. He's like, Ironfire is fighting Xavier right now, and even though I amplified him greatly, he's still no match for Xavier, and he probably lost to him as we speak, which he's right. He also lets her know that now probably the Neymars are on their way to the lab, and we pretty much cannot defeat them at all, which again, he's right. He's like, you might not like this, but I'm your least worst option. And she's just like, you're gonna pay for this. As soon as we get home, your best option is to dismantle this monstrosity you have. And then she starts busting at the Neymars. So while all this is going on, he's sitting there literally contemplating on the things that went wrong and so on and so forth, and how he can do better, and then maybe he'll become a god. And Myra's like, become a god? What are you doing? Hurry up! So if you're keeping up with this series, back in Immortal X-Men #1, he specified how he implanted a kill switch in all the different Sinister clones. And now that he's in the lab, he can activate that kill switch. And he's telling Myra, I can go ahead and then do this, and then we can use it as fuel. Then we can go ahead and we can wipe out the reality. So he does it, and on the next page, all you see is all the different Sinisters all around the universe. Billions of them, probably more than billions, are all now starting to burn up and die. You see that Nightcrawler Kenny might be protected because she's surrounded by blue fire instead of the normal fire. And if it is, then that's her baby protecting her. So as you can see, as Sinister does, he lied again. And when he hit the kill switch on all different Sinisters, he absorbed, all their either power or essence into him. And now he has all the power he needs to become a Dominion. And as he's glowing red and he's ascending up, he says, "I've escaped everything, even the need to tell jokes. You are the joke." I hope not, because the only reason why I like Sinister even a little bit is because of the jokes. So as he's rising up and he's feeling himself, and oh Lord, he is feeling himself, he bumps into something. And he's like, "What is this?" And he's like, "It's a Dominion, and it's already here." And they're like, "Yeah, I am here, and I have all the knowledge in the world, or in the universe, I should say, and I can share it with you. I'll just share this one fact. I'm not you." So he falls back down to his lab and he's extremely humbled. He's like, "I lost. I can't believe I lost." And the Ironfire is like, "You've killed the galaxy." He's like, "You don't understand. One of them beat me to it. Stasis, Stellaris, Mother Righteous, one of them becomes a Dominion, and not me." And Ironfire is like, "I'm gonna take care of you." And Sinner's like, "It doesn't even matter. Kill me, kill them, kill her. Nothing matters." So Ironfire is like, "You're wrong. Death always matters." And he cuts off Sinister's head. Ironfire is like, 1,000 years and he's learned nothing. And Myra's like, "He's learned something. He's learned that he is nothing. Let's hope he remembers that." And she shoots one of the Myras. So on the next page, we see the results of Myra 7. Took 1,000 years, and there were 8 quadrillion deaths. You think I'm smart, right? Wrong. My daughter knew that place value. I did not. I had to look it up. So now we are right back at the scene of the crime. Literally, the scene of the crime where Sinister just got finished taking out 4 of the Quiet Council. We know which 4 they are. And he's trying to figure out a save point for this. And he's like, "I'm not going back to Judgment Day." So we find out that this is the save point. And then all of a sudden, there's an upload. And he's like, "Oh, let's look at this file. Oh, it's extremely large. 1,000 years, unusually large. Let's see what we got downloaded." And then there's this huge explosion, and all you hear is, "Hello, Sinister. Let me tell you a story." And he goes, "Myra?" So then Myra starts explaining how she showed up right when Mother Righteous was being betrayed by Nightcrawler, and how she had this mystical item that turns out to be a mystical virus that she was going to use to upload a virus to erase the timeline, but also save what information she needed to the next timeline. Well, Mother Righteous was preparing a particular soul, which was Nightcrawler's baby, to be the sacrifice, because all the Nightkin were sacrificing themselves in the name of the Spark. But they was also sacrificing themselves in the name of Mother Righteous. So Mother Righteous soul will work just as well, and that's what Myra did. She sacrificed Mother Righteous into the heart so that she can activate it. Now, she also wanted to let him know that he made an attempt to ascend to Dominionhood, and he had the apple. Unfortunately, he found out that somebody had the orchard, and it wasn't him. And then she goes, "This is my story. Your story's over." So if you think it can't get any worse for Sinister, Myra's like, "Hold my beer." So then there's another explosion, and the Sinister's like, "Wait, reality's still here." And he goes to his computer and he's like, "My Sinister gene, it's being neutralized before they're even killed." And he's like, "That's what the virus did." And he's like, "Where are my files? They're being uploaded." where are they going? And then all you hear is RP4 growth cycle has begun. And he goes, RP4? That's not one of mine. And he goes, what in the damn nation? I mean, this man's so frustrated, he went all the way back to the 1890s. And then she comes out and she has all of her memories of what happened in that timeline. She goes, I am Rasputin 4, captain of the fleet, and you, Nathaniel Exodus, are wanted for the murder of all mutant kind. And then we show Mother Righteous. She's just chilling in her place. And all of a sudden she notices that there's been an addition. And then there's this huge wing that's been added to her library, which is all the information from that timeline. And she goes, oh, Christmas has come early. Who do I get to thank? And then she goes, thank you, Mother Righteous. So the heart worked. So now we're at the point where you got the rest of the Quiet Council is trying to gather up the X-Men, the X-Force, and hunt after Sinister. And then Destiny grabs her chest, and Mystique's like, what's wrong? And Destiny's like, the future. There's more of it. So all of a sudden this portal's open up, and it's Rasputin 4 with Sinister in tow. And she's like, Krakoa, it's real. And then her and Kitty, which you know, back at that timeline, she really didn't like Kitty. But this Kitty, they hit it off really well. And then Rasputin 4 is like, this dude need to pay for his crimes. And Kitty's like, I think we can handle that for you. So now we're at the Quiet Council's headquarters, and Sinister is just pleading. He's like, look, I know you're supposed to send me to the pits, but that will be a mistake. He says, you don't understand. You're making a mistake. I don't matter. I'm not a threat. I'm not the one you need to be afraid of. It's the other Sinisters, not me. I'm nothing. As the vines are wrapping around him, he goes, I failed. One of them succeeds. There is a sinister dominion out there, outside of time and space. A stain on existence is already there. They already won. Oh God, it's too late. And he goes, Irene, you have to stop them. It's up to you, Irene. It's down to you now. But it's already happened. So it's too late. You have to find a way anyway. Please, Irene. On the same side, remember? I know you understand. Only you understand. Don't do this. I'm not even a crumb between the teeth of God. I'm nothing. And then Krakoa swallows him up. And as much as Emma hates him, first thing she says is, did his panic seem particularly convincing? So then they go to Rasputin 4. So who do we get to thank for all this? And then she introduces Mother Righteous. And then she goes, oh, my little ducks. It's all news to me too. Yes and no. So she lets them know everything that happened in that timeline, because we know that she just recently got that information. She must be a really fast reader. So they ask her to leave as they discuss some things, which she does. So she comes back, and based on her story, they decide to put Xavier, Emma, Hope, and Exodus into the pit. Now we know, based on what Mister Sinister said, that they don't have the Sinister gene anymore, and I think Mother Righteous knows that too. Just decided to conveniently leave that out. So now that 4 of the most powerful mutants that Krakoa has are now in the pit, where do you think this goes from here? Now we all know there's going to be a fall of X. Is this one of the contributing factors? And also, who do you think achieved the Dominion status? Is it one of the Sinisters? Me personally, I don't think it's any of the Sinister. I think it's Myra, because like she said, it's her story now.